Chapter 548. The surrounding cultivators held their breaths. Many of them who did not have a high cultivation base could not even withstand the sword chi around the cloud mountain. Lu Yu ascended to the top of the cloud. Even though he was blind, his mind was as clear as snow. He could not see Ningfan's appearance, but he could feel Ningfan's unusually young bone age and the unusually terrifying void sword light surrounding Ningfan's body. Facing Ningfan now, even if Lu Yu uses his sword light incarnation technique, he still did not have the confidence to win. He suddenly raised his hand and clawed at the sea of clouds from afar. The sea of clouds that stretched for hundreds of thousands of li suddenly trembled and countless cracks appeared on it. Rays of golden light shone from the cracks in the sea of clouds and flowed out, condensing into a golden cloud sword in Lu Yu's palm. That golden cloud sword was a magic sword. It did not have a sharp edge, but it could strangely trigger the great momentum of heaven and earth. Lu Yu flicked his wrist and the golden sword flashed. He suddenly pointed at Ningfan's sword light and the sea of clouds immediately rolled. The clouds of heaven and earth are all my swords. The momentum of the soft clouds can suppress all directions. Countless clouds in the sky suddenly connected with each other with great momentum, turning into an aura force that could topple mountains and overturn seas, pressing down on Ningfan's head. Large areas of the hollow space were crushed and crushed. An unusually heavy pressure hit Ningfan's body, making it difficult for him to breathe. His eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. Lu Yu's sword technique was clearly a sword of great momentum which was extremely similar to his heaven-treading 9 steps. Even though the clouds were soft and soft, the softer the cloud, the sword that was condensed from it would have the most masculine sword intent and sword momentum. Lu Yu continued to shake the sword light. The momentum of the clouds in the sky became stronger and stronger. In the beginning, the momentum of the clouds was only equivalent to that of a void-pierce stage expert. However, as the momentum of the clouds increased, Ningfan had an illusion that it was not the clouds that were suppressing him but an old monster at the first heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm. Under the vast momentum of the clouds, Ningfan felt as if he was carrying a mountain on his back. His bones began to creak and he almost fell off the cloud. As for Lu Yu, he was still shaking the sword light and the momentum of the clouds was still increasing. Perhaps it would not take long before Lu Yu could raise the momentum of the clouds to the second heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm and injure Ningfan completely, forcing him to fall off the cloud. Only Ningfan could withstand the force of the clouds with just his physical body. If it is any other void refinement realm expert or even a void pierce stage expert, they would be severely injured by the force of the clouds and fall from the sky. The weak sword has a strong intent while the soft sword has a strong intent. This Lu Yu's cloud fusion force is indeed extraordinary. However, even a first heavenly layer void fragmentation realm cultivator can forget about suppressing me with force. Not even Lu Yu can do it. It's impossible to form a sword without momentum. The sword of great momentum isn't unbreakable. Ningfan's eyes were filled with fierce battle intent. His body seemed to have turned into an ancient sword that hung high in the sky. Under the heavy aura of the clouds, sword light shone around Ningfan's body and he suddenly took the first step forward. This step seemed as if he'd stepped on the heaven Tao, and it caused circle after circle of ripples in the heavens and the earth that were like ripples of water. That step was clearly stepping on the sky, but it seemed to be stepping on the hearts of countless cultivators in the surroundings, causing everyone to raise their eyebrows. At this moment, Ningfan seemed to be above the heaven and earth. There was a kind of aura around him that could not be ignored. After he took that step, the cloud force within the radius of 100 li suddenly shattered, turning into strong gales that swept across the sea of clouds in all directions. Lu Yu's face was filled with shock. To his horror, he realized that his sword of cloud force was being broken bit by Ningfan. One should know that this sort of cloud force focused on combining with momentum. Lu Yu had cultivated it for 1,000 years. Against a void pierce stage expert, he usually only needed a single sword of cloud light to suppress them. Even an ordinary absolute void stage cultivator would find it hard to break the sword force of Lu Yu's sword. However, Ningfan just took a step forward and broke his sword force of soft clouds. The weaker the sword was, the stronger the sword intent and sword force it possessed. Due to the weakness of the sword of soft clouds, its cloud force was shocking. Ning Fan did not have a sword in his hand, but there was a sword in his heart. His sword force without a sword was even stronger than the sword force of the soft clouds. The sword force of this 9 steps heaven treading was a sword technique that created something out of nothing. Among all the sword cultivators that I've met in my life, there are only 3 people who can make me admire them. One of them is the white-robed sword god. Another is the 3rd elder of the Zhou clan, and the last one is a sword cultivator rogue immortal that I met by chance. This young man is the 4th person. When Lu Yu was still in shock, Ning Fan had already taken the 2nd step. The sea of clouds within 1,000 li collapsed. The 3rd step, collapsing the sea of clouds. The 4th step, shattering the sea of clouds for 100,000 li. On the 5th step, the sword force that Lu Yu had painstakingly condensed was completely crushed by Ning Fan. Without stopping, he took the 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th steps consecutively. As he took his 9th step, his sword momentum rose to its peak at this moment. With Ning Fan's current understanding of the general trend and the real situation, the destructive power of his 9 heaven-treading steps became even more terrifying. At this moment, Ning Fan did not have a sword in his hand. However, it was exactly because he did not have a sword in his hand that his sword force had reached the peak that a void refinement realm cultivator could achieve. A light flashed in Ning Fan's mind. He felt that at this moment he could control all low-grade flying swords that were lower than spirit-severing magical treasures, be it friend or foe. All the swords of heaven and earth, listen to my command. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with sword light and he suddenly gave a command. The vast sword aura swept across hundreds of thousands of miles of cloudy mountain. In the blink of an eye, the flying swords of all the cultivators around Cloud Mountain trembled. As Ning Fan willed it, the flying swords of the 100,000 low-grade cultivators either flew out of their scabbards or sheaths or broke free from their storage pouches. All the flying swords at the scene were subdued by Ning Fan's sword aura. 100,000 flying swords swept across the vast sky. The sword light was like a rainbow, shocking the entire June Heaven territory. Controlling 10,000 swords, Marquis White Robe actually combined his body with the sword aura and commanded the 10,000 swords to submit to him. Even Void Fragmentation Realm sword cultivators might not necessarily be able to command 10,000 swords. Marquis White Robe is far from being a Void Fragmentation Realm cultivator, but he can command 10,000 swords. This is just unimaginable. Lu Yu's scalp went numb. Even though he was blind and could not see the spectacular scene of Ning Fan commanding the 10,000 swords in the sky, he could feel the dense sword aura. His soft cloud sword aura was no match for Ning Fan's swordless sword aura at all. It was also very difficult for his sword light incarnation to withstand Ning Fan's next attack. Small void sword. Ning Fan raised his hand and pointed at the 100,000 low-grade flying swords. All of them shattered and turned into illusory black sword shadows. In the past, he had secretly learned Marquis Yugihu's small void sword technique. However, he still could not comprehend this technique perfectly. At this moment, however, he could command 10,000 swords and vaguely understood the unique technique of the small void sword. What was the small void sword? It could command the void and become one sword. It could kill 1,000,000 cultivators. Fall. With a point of his finger, 100,000 void sword shadows attacked him like a rainstorm, causing Lu Yu's expression to change drastically. His sword light incarnation could block ordinary attacks. However, there were so many void sword shadows that could cut through the void. Even his incarnation could not withstand this attack. However, he could not retreat or be afraid of this step because he was a sword cultivator. If he is afraid, he would no longer be able to persist in practicing the sword for the rest of his life. I was born in the rain world. I joined the sword sect when I was 10 years old. When I was 100 years old, I destroyed my own eyes in order to cultivate the sword in peace. From then on, my heart was devoted to the sword and my heart was untainted by worldly affairs. In the past 9,000 years, I have been alone and lost too many things. The sword in my hand is the only thing that I have never lost. As long as the sword exists, I will exist. If the sword is defeated, I will die. Lu Yu's expression looked like he had gone mad. After shattering the cloud sword in his hand, he suddenly made a hand seal and a peak mortal void realm crimson golden flying sword shot out from the red sandalwood sword box on his back. The void refinement realm was the mortal void realm, while the void fragmentation realm was the immortal void realm. Even though this crimson golden flying sword was only at the mortal void realm, it contained a trace of immortal void realm might. That trace of immortal void realm might was the result of Lu Yu's persistence for 9,000 years. This sword was called Foolishness Sword. It contained the Tao of sword that Lu Yu had spent his entire life practicing. Lu Yu's talent in the Tao of sword might not be as good as others, but his obsession with the sword was something that even Ning Fan and Yun Tianjue could not compare to. He raised his hand and pointed at the Foolishness Sword. His sword hand's seal changed abruptly and the body of the sword shone with dazzling sword light. The sword light divided into 2 and then into 4. Then, 100 rays of sword light turned into 1,000 rays of gigantic crimson golden divine tortoises which collided with the 100,000 sword lights. Bang, bang, bang. Each of the sword lights was shattered and the shadows of the crimson golden divine tortoises were destroyed. Even though the divine tortoises were destroyed, some of the sword lights still remained in the void. They turned into a sea of sword light that engulfed Lu Yu. The whistling sword lights were so oppressive that the group of cultivators found it hard to breathe. Only Ning Fan and Lu Yu could remain standing on the summit of the sea of clouds. Ning Fan stood like a boulder. He waved his hand to disperse the circles of sword lights that were collapsing. His eyes revealed a hint of respect as he stared at the sword shadows that were gradually disappearing in the void. Lu Yu did not take even half a step back, but he was severely injured. Blood flowed out from his 7 orifices. His final move was defeated by Ning Fan in the end. However, at least his Tao of sword did not lose to Ning Fan. He managed to maintain his stance and did not retreat. Cough, I've lost, but my sword is not. It won't lose either. Lu Yu's qi was weak and he kept coughing out blood. However, his aged face was filled with a smile. Being able to lose to a sword cultivator like Ning Fan was something worth being happy about. Being able to maintain his Tao of sword without regrets was also something worth being happy about. You aren't weak. If I haven't broken through to the void inquiry stage, I might not be able to defeat you. Ning Fan said honestly. Even though his Tao was completely different from Lu Yu's Tao of sword, he more or less had a hint of respect for people who were persistent in their Tao. Marquis White Robe's abilities are astonishing. I admit my defeat wholeheartedly. I'm going to bring Marquis White Robe to the belly of the mountain to see the rain monument. Just as Lu Yu's voice fell, 5 angry voices suddenly came from the sword case behind him. Little Yu, you're really weak. It's a waste of our many years of guiding you in your sword techniques. You actually lost to this person. You've lost all of our faces. Pumph. Big sister is not going to talk to you anymore. Pumph. Second sister is not going to talk to you anymore. Humph. Third sister is not going to talk to you anymore. Humph. Fourth sister is not going to talk to you anymore. Humph. Pumph. Humph. Don't listen to her, Humph. She's just stuttering. She wants to say that she is not going to talk to you anymore. From today onwards, we don't want you anymore. We are going to look for a new human pet. Pumph. Goodbye forever. Chi 5 rays of sword light with different colors flew out from Lu Yu's sword case. Their speed was too fast. No one could clearly see what was inside the sword light. Lu Yu smiled bitterly. Even though these few little ancestors had a high level of sword comprehension, their minds were just like children. Now that they saw him losing to Ning Fan, they would probably feel indignant. Several thousand years ago, Lu Yu, who had just attained the Void Glimpse stage, picked up these few little ancestors in some ancient ruins of sword cultivators. During these years, if it wasn't for their guidance, he would definitely not be able to cultivate the sword light incarnation ability. However, these little ancestors were also quite annoying. They often tormented Lu Yu. Lu Yu looked at the 5 rays of sword light that were leaving. He felt both relieved and disappointed at the same time. Fortunately, he no longer had these little ancestors to torment him from now on. However, he was disappointed because he really felt a little reluctant to part with these little ancestors after getting along with them for several thousand years. Suddenly, the 5 rays of sword light changed their direction and flew towards Ning Fan's direction. Lu Yu was stunned. Could it be that these little ancestors were going to keep him as their human pet after noticing that Ning Fan's sword techniques were powerful? This is... Ning Fan's eyes widened when he saw the 5 rays of sword light whistling towards him. Ordinary people could not see clearly what was inside the sword light, but Ning Fan could. They were 5 little girls who were only the size of a thumb. The 5 little girls were dressed in 5 different colors of gold, green, blue, red, and yellow respectively. Each of them had delicate features and they seemed to be around 11 or 12 years old. Each of them had thin dragonfly-like wings on their backs. Each of their little faces was filled with anger. These are sword spirits. Besides, they aren't the sword spirits of ordinary flying swords. They are at least the sword spirits of immortal swords. If a sword has intelligence, it would be called a sword spirit. The sword spirits of ordinary flying swords were the spiritual nature of the flying sword itself. However, the sword spirits of some immortal swords could get out of the flying sword and transform into a physical form. The 5 sword spirits were coming at Ning Fan aggressively. Before Ning Fan could ask Lu Yu about their origins, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. Among the 5 thumb-sized girls, the golden-robed little girl suddenly made a gesture with her small hands, and a vast sword essence spread out from her small body. Humph! Little Yu might have lost to you, but we won't lose to you. We will definitely teach you a good lesson. Void slashing sword technique. Countless rays of sword light suddenly appeared around Ning Fan's body. The hollow space was suddenly cut open and the scenery in front of him changed. In just an instant, he disappeared from the peak of the Sea of Clouds in the June Heaven territory and appeared in an independent heavenly dwelling space. Even though the little girl in golden robes had a small body, her abilities were not weak. She could actually use the void slashing sword technique. The void slashing sword technique was extremely similar to the heavenly opening palm technique of void fragmentation realm cultivators. Both of them were magic techniques used to open a heavenly dwelling. Normally, only void fragmentation realm sword cultivators could master this technique. That little girl in golden robes did not have any magic power flowing in her body, but she could use the void fragmentation realm technique. After successfully capturing Ning Fan into the heavenly dwelling space, the 5 little girls revealed a proud smile. They flapped their thin wings and flew to 5 different directions, surrounding Ning Fan. Humph! You are already surrounded by us. You can't escape. You have defeated little Yu. We have lost a lot of face. Big sister is going to slash you 300 times to punish you. Second sister will slash you 500 times. Third sister will slash you 700 times. Fourth sister will slash you 900 times. 5. She is a stutterer. She wants to slash you 1,000 times. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. He could feel a strong sense of danger from the 5 little girls. Besides, there was also a strange sense of familiarity. The 5 little girls were the sword spirits of immortal swords. Even though they did not have any cultivation base, just by relying on their sword intent and sword techniques alone, they could make the Great Void stage feel fearful. If the 5 little girls worked together, perhaps even an old monster at the first heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm would have to temporarily avoid them. These 5 little girls were indeed powerful. However, it was still impossible for them to slash Ning Fan. What's your relationship with Lu Yu? What's your relationship with the Great Heaven Palace? Ning Fan asked with a faint smile. We have nothing to do with little Yu. He is a pet that we picked up from the streets. However, we have lost him now. As for the Great Heaven Palace, what's that? I've never heard of it. The 5 little girls said arrogantly. It has nothing to do with Lu Yu and the Great Heaven Palace? I haven't even heard of the name of the Great Heaven Palace before. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. If that's the case, no one would have any objections if I capture these 5 sword spirits, right? Sword spirits are good stuff. By keeping them in a flying sword, they can improve the divine abilities of the flying sword. Besides, they can also help to refine the flying sword and increase its power. Some of the sword spirits even mastered some of their previous masters' sword techniques and divine abilities. If these 5 sword spirits are immortal swords, I wonder if they have mastered some high-grade sword techniques. Besides, these 5 sword spirits are quite powerful. If I can subdue them, they can serve as some of my combat power. He even dared to capture the messenger of the heavenly tribulation. What could 5 sword spirits of immortal swords do to him? All of you belong to me. Chapter 549. All of you are mine now. As soon as Ning Fan's voice fell, he immediately summoned his 8 black burning wings. With a sway of his body, he disappeared without a trace. The 5 little girls were laughing happily just now. As soon as they saw Ning Fan disappearing, their hearts were filled with alarm and their faces turned cold. Humph! Trying to sneak an attack on me? You're still too inexperienced. Kill him. Even though the 5 girls had petite bodies, their attacks were fast and ruthless. Each of them raised their hands and sent out sword light in 5 different directions. Since they were sword spirits, their small hands were sharper than ordinary flying swords. With a wave of their hands, they could produce sword light with a destructive force comparable to a void-pierce stage attack. In the vast sky, the 5 sword lights were aiming at the spots where Ning Fan's figure appeared. Ning Fan instantly changed his direction and flew in 5 different directions. However, every time he landed, there would be sword lights slashing at him, making him unable to get closer to the 5 girls. The 5 girls' senses were very sharp. They were indeed the sword spirits of immortal swords. Ning Fan pointed at his glabella and held the Separation Slayer sword in his hand. He took 9 steps in an instant and became one with the great force of heaven and earth. After blocking the 5 sword lights with his sword, he naturally did not suffer any injuries. When the 5 little girls saw that their sword lights could not deal with Ning Fan, their faces turned solemn. The flying sword of an immemorial divine weapon? Tong Tong, break his flying sword. The golden-robed sword spirit said with a cold face. Alright. The 5th sword spirit's name was Tong Tong. She was wearing yellow robes. After hearing the order, she formed a hand seal with her small hands and her eyes shone with dazzling sword light. An extremely terrifying sword intent spread out from the body of the yellow-robed sword spirit. It instantly covered the entire heavenly dwelling, causing the entire space to tremble. That sword intent contained a domineering intent that could destroy all flying swords. Under the 5th sword spirit's sword intent, a cracking sound suddenly resounded. Without any warning, the Separation Slayer sword in Ning Fan's hand trembled violently. On the body of the sword, a tiny crack spread out like a spider web, a dignified 2-star divine weapon that even a void fragmentation realm expert could not break with all his might was actually cracked by the mere sword intent of a little girl. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with shock for the first time. The 5th sword spirit sword intent was too powerful. It could actually break a person's flying sword and even an immemorial divine weapon. Although the Separation Slayer sword was a 2-star divine weapon, it would definitely break into 2 if it was attacked by the little girl's divine will. The slightly stuttering 5th sword spirit revealed a perplexed expression when he saw that he couldn't shatter Ning Fan's flying sword. The other sword spirits covered their mouths and said in surprise, "It's a 2-star divine weapon." No wonder it wasn't shattered by Tong Tong. But don't be afraid, let Jingjing break his sword momentum. The sword spirit named Jingjing was the eldest sister of the 5 girls, the first sword spirit dressed in golden clothes. The golden-robed sword spirit formed hand seals and released a sword intent that was completely different from the yellow-robed sword spirit. It covered the entire grotto heaven. The moment the sword intent spread out, Ning Fan's 9 heaven-treading steps that had merged with heaven and earth collapsed. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with astonishment. These 5 little girls are a little heaven-defying. The yellow-clothed sword spirit can shatter people's flying swords. The golden-clothed sword spirit can shatter people's sword force. I'm afraid the other 3 sword spirits also have their own divine abilities. He dispersed the momentum, put away the separation slayer, took a light breath, and began to think. After a while, he slowly raised his finger and pointed at the 5 girls. A sword light was formed from his finger. At the moment when the sword light was about to take shape, the second sword spirit, who was dressed in green clothes, formed hand seals and released her sword intent. Under this sword intent, Ning Fan's sword light immediately collapsed. The green-clothed sword spirit can shatter people's sword light and sword shadow, Ning Fan pondered. Then he activated the heart formation technique and displayed the Eastern profound sword formation that he hadn't used for a long time. Before the sword formation could take shape, the 4th sword spirit, who was dressed in red clothes, formed hand seals and released her sword intent. In an instant, the Eastern profound sword formation that Ning Fan had yet to form collapsed. Just as the red-clothed sword spirit stopped, the 3rd sword spirit, who was dressed in blue clothes, also formed hand seals and released her sword intent. The sword intent of the blue-clothed sword spirit was as gentle as water. Under this sword intent, Ning Fan only felt that his sword intent was dispersing and disappearing. His eyes were slightly shocked. He now had a better understanding of the abilities of the 5 sword spirits. The red-clothed sword spirit can shatter people's sword formation, while the blue-clothed sword spirit can shatter people's sword intent. When the 5 of them gather together, no sword cultivator below the void fragmentation realm can compete with them. Even sword cultivators at the 1st or 2nd heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm might not be a match for these 5 little girls. The astonishment in Ning Fan's eyes did not escape the 5 girls' eyes. When the 5 girls saw Ning Fan's shocked expression, they revealed a complacent look. Humph. Big Sister's sword intent specializes in breaking all kinds of sword force. Are you afraid? Humph. Second Sister's sword intent specializes in breaking all kinds of sword light. Are you afraid? Humph. Third Sister's sword intent specializes in breaking all kinds of sword intent. Are you afraid? Humph. Fourth Sister's sword intent specializes in breaking all kinds of sword formations. Are you afraid? Humph. Tong Tong, you are the one who stutters. Don't always imitate us. Oh. While the 5 girls were feeling complacent, Ning Fan withdrew his astonished expression and laughed. You 5 little girls are really interesting. If I bring you along, I'm sure you'll be useful in a battle against Void Fragmentation Realm sword cultivators. I'll capture you guys for now and subdue you in the future. Your sword techniques and abilities have all been broken by us. You can't subdue us. Do you want to try? Ning Fan's traveling light turned into a long rainbow and approached the 5 girls. He wasn't a pure sword cultivator. He had plenty of abilities to deal with the 5 girls. The 5 girls didn't show any mercy. They tried to raise their hands to attack Ning Fan with sword light. Ning Fan didn't give them the chance to release their sword light. He directly pointed his finger and used his trump card. In an instant, the faces of the 5 girls turned pale. They found that their bodies couldn't move. Countless bloodlines spread out from their bodies and bound them firmly in the sky, fixing them in the clouds. These bloodlines were the heaven's sealing technique. After a few seconds, Ning Fan's figure appeared 10 zhang away from the 5 girls. He flicked his finger and a yin imprisoning rope was shot out. The rope divided into 5 hair-thin ropes halfway and bound the 5 sword spirits. The 5 sword spirits were only the size of a thumb. This yin imprisoning rope could be considered as a smaller version. Before the 5 girls could break free from the heaven sealing technique, they were bound by the yin imprisoning rope again. They still had a chance to break free from the heaven sealing technique. However, after being bound by the yin imprisoning rope, the 5 girls lost all their strength and had no way to break free. How can these bloodlines bind me? The golden-robed sword spirit's face was filled with panic. I can't exert any strength after being bound by this rope. The green-robed sword spirit almost fell to the ground. Unfair. Unfair. Your body is so big and we are so small. It's unfair for you to capture us. Let's do it again. I want to do it again. The red-robed sword spirit's face turned red as she protested. I'm wrong. Don't capture me. I'm afraid. The blue-robed sword spirit's eyes turned red. Please. The yellow-robed sword spirit wanted to beg for mercy, but he stuttered and couldn't utter a complete sentence. He was very anxious. Ning Fan kept the thin rope in his hand and kept the 5 petite sword spirits in his palm. He shook his head and smiled. These 5 sword spirits possessed remarkable abilities, but their temperament was like that of a child. Although they were naughty and mischievous, they were extremely timid and pure. If Ning Fan could find a higher-grade sword forbidden spell and plant it on them, they would never dare to betray Ning Fan even though they were timid and afraid of death. Instead, they would serve Ning Fan as their master for the rest of their lives. Sword restriction was a common restriction. Generally speaking, any flying sword that had developed intelligence would be planted with a restriction to prevent the flying sword from escaping on its own. The restriction didn't control the flying sword, but the sword spirit within the flying sword. Ning Fan only had one natal flying sword, the Separation Slayer. The Separation Slayer didn't have a sword spirit. Ning Fan knew quite a number of sword restriction techniques, but most of them were for nascent soul and transformation realm flying swords. Their grades were too low. With the power of this restriction, he couldn't control the sword spirit of an immortal sword. From today onwards, the 5 of you are my sword spirits. I still have something to do now. When I have time, I will find a higher grade sword restriction and officially subdue all of you. For now, all of you should have a long sleep. Ning Fan activated the power of his plucking finger and tapped the 5 little sword spirits consecutively, causing them to fall asleep. Then he kept all of them into his storage pouch. Then he punched the heavenly dwelling space, shattering it into pieces. He returned to the outside world and reappeared at the peak of the Sea of Clouds in the June Heaven territory. In reality, not too much time had passed since Ning Fan entered the heavenly dwelling space and returned to the outside world. Ordinary cultivators had no idea where Ning Fan had gone, but Lu Yu knew the truth. He knew that Ning Fan had been captured into the heavenly dwelling by the 5 sword spirits. Seeing that Ning Fan had safely left the heavenly dwelling space, Lu Yu naturally heaved a long sigh of relief. He was very worried that Ning Fan would be tortured half to death by the 5 sword spirits. Today, seeing that Ning Fan was safe and sound while the 5 sword spirits were nowhere to be found, Lu Yu let out a sigh. He didn't know that the 5 sword spirits had been captured. He only knew that Ning Fan had become their new human pet. Thus, he said to Ning Fan with great sympathy, "Sigh. Everything is unpredictable and everyone has their own fortunes and misfortunes. I'm sorry for your loss, Marquis White Robe. These 5 little ancestors like torturing people, but they aren't bad people. Marquis White Robe, just bear it when you get along with them in the future. My loss? What do you mean by that?" Ning Fan was puzzled. Sigh. Marquis White Robe is really an open-minded person. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's go. I will bring Marquis White Robe into the belly of the mountain to study the rain's steel. Lu Yu did not have the strength to capture the 5 sword spirits. He could only be bullied by them. Ning Fan was naturally not afraid of the 5 sword spirits. He was the only one who could bully them. To Lu Yu, being abandoned by the 5 sword spirits was considered a joyous occasion. To Ning Fan, obtaining the 5 sword spirits was also considered a gain. The 2 of them entered the belly of the mountain. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Ning Fan left the Great Heaven Palace. Sensing that Ning Fan's traveling light was gradually getting further away, Lu Yu let out a deep sigh. My 5 little ancestors, you guys have to take it easy. Don't torture Marquis White Robe to death. Speaking of which, I still have to thank Marquis White Robe. If it wasn't because of his appearance, the 5 little ancestors wouldn't have left. From today onwards, no one will disturb me anymore. I can finally have a peaceful sleep. I'm a little not used to them being noisy. The first level of the Heavenly Cloud Realm, the Clear Heaven Realm. From the 3rd realm, the Scarlet Heaven Realm, Ning Fan had challenged the 6 palace masters of the 4th realm to the 9th realm along the way. Currently, the only ones he had not challenged were the Vast Heaven Palace and the Yang Heaven Palace. Ever since the fall of the 4th prince, The Yang Heaven Palace had always been the weakest among the 9 great branch palaces. Their palace master was just a void glimpse stage expert whose name was Zheng He. Moreover, he had even died in the Battle of 100 Sects. Now that the Yang Heaven Palace was even weaker, it was not worth mentioning. The only thing that needed to be paid attention to was the vast Heaven Palace. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. As far as he knew, Palace Lord Hao Tian was an absolute void stage cultivator. He was the strongest expert among the 9 palace lords. If he defeated Palace Master Hao Tian, then the rain steals of the 9 palace masters would be complete. After passing by each of the cultivation cities and mountains, Ning Fan stepped on the ancient golden sword and sped through the clear heaven realm. The Cloud Mountain was already in sight. On top of the 90,000 feet tall cloudy mountain, a short and skinny old man who was as thin as firewood stood with his eyes closed. All the meddlesome cultivators of the 9 realms had gathered in all directions. Those with discerning eyes knew that the Yang Heaven Palace was not worth mentioning. As long as Ning Fan defeats Palace Lord Hao Tian, he could be considered to have defeated all the 8 palaces of the Rain Palace. Countless cultivators were guessing and betting whether Palace Lord Hao Tian, who was at the absolute void stage, would win, or Ning Fan, who had never been defeated. "You're here." The short old man suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with endless rain intent. Looking at the golden sword light that was getting closer to him, his expression gradually turned cold. "I heard from the 4 elders that you've released the sinner Wu Chen. Is that true?" Swoosh! An extremely dense rain intent spread out. Rain began to fall within hundreds of thousands of li. As for the old man, his absolute void stage aura force directly condensed into an illusory palm imprint and slammed down on Ning Fan's head. "I'm Yun Ling, the Palace Lord of Vast Heaven. With me here, don't even think about comprehending my vast heaven rain steel." Ning Fan stopped his sword light and kept his ancient sword. Standing on the sea of clouds, he raised his hand and punched, shattering the palm imprint. His fist felt a little numb. This Palace Lord Hao Tian was indeed an absolute void stage cultivator. He was not to be underestimated. "What if I insist on looking at the vast heaven rain steel?" Ning Fan asked without fear. "It's simple. Defeat me and you can look at the vast heaven rain steel. However, you can't do it." The old man disappeared with a single step. In the next moment, he appeared above the sea of clouds and snorted disdainfully. "Even though I'm not a grand void stage cultivator, defeating you is still a piece of cake." In front of hundreds of thousands of cultivators, Yun Ling put down his arrogant words. Then he patted his storage pouch and a shining silver pagoda appeared in his hand. As soon as the pagoda appeared, a rain intent that was filled with boundless baleful chi blew towards Ning Fan's face. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. As for the cultivators in the surroundings, those who knew the origin of the pagoda exclaimed in disbelief. "This is the freezing rain pagoda." This pagoda not only sealed the rain but also sealed the countless demons and undead spirits that were killed by the Rain Palace in the past tens of thousands of years. This pagoda was once the natal treasure that the Rain Sovereign personally gave to the 4th prince. Now, it belonged to Yun Ling. "With this pagoda here, I only need 10 breaths to defeat you. Ning Fan, you are not my opponent. Quickly retreat and you can avoid being humiliated." Chapter 550. As soon as he finished speaking, Yun Ling raised the freezing rain pagoda in the sky. The pagoda immediately grew to 10,000 zhang in size. Its silver light was as bright as the stars in the sky. The pagoda seemed to have been severely damaged by someone. There was an extremely terrifying sword mark on the surface of the pagoda, which nearly split it into 2. This pagoda must have been an earth-shattering treasure in the past. Now that it was half destroyed by that sword strike, its power was greatly reduced, revealing the terrifying might of a magic treasure. Countless dark clouds began to appear in the sky, turning it gloomy. The drizzle turned into a rainstorm. Suddenly, the cries of millions of babies resounded from within the pagoda. It was eerie and it made one's scalp tingle. A wave of baleful yin qi spread out. The cultivators around Cloud Mountain shivered. 3 void fragmentation realm princes stood in the sky far away, watching the battle. Among the 3 of them, one of them wore green robes. His expression was as gentle as jade. His eyes were like 2 deep pools and he held a folding fan in his hand. He was the second prince, Yun Xiaoxiang. One of them wore red battle armor. His eyes were filled with madness and his body was surrounded by raging fire qi. He carried a fiery red spear on his shoulder. He was the 5th prince, Yun Zhongyan. Another one wore a black robe with an embroidered python on it. There was a scar on his face. His eyes were half closed and he wore a smile on his lips. He was the 6th prince, Yun Yom. Seeing Yun Ling raise the freezing rain pagoda to show off his power, Yun Xiaoxiang revealed a faint smile. Yun Ling is making a big fuss out of nothing. There's no need to use this treasure to deal with a void inquiry stage kid. Even if this Ning Fan can defeat the other 7 palaces, his cultivation base is still far from Yun Ling's. Putting aside his indestructible fire physique, this young man is not worth mentioning. Second brother is right. A mere void inquiry stage kid is actually arrogant enough to defeat the 9 palaces. Let him suffer some losses in Yun Ling's hands. Only then will he know that there is always someone better than him. Yun Zhongyan let out a disdainful snort. My 2 royal brothers, are you sure that Ning Fan will lose? Yun Yomu's eyes were still half closed and he wore a meaningful smile. You and I both know how powerful the freezing rain pagoda is. This treasure used to be 4th brother's treasure. It's the best defensive treasure in our rain palace. Father had high hopes for 4th brother in the past and wanted to groom him to be the next rain emperor. Unexpectedly, that bastard Yun Tianjue actually killed 4th brother. Even this sealing rain pagoda is half destroyed and 90% of its power has been lost. Yun Zhongyan clenched his teeth in hatred. However, a moment later, he revealed a cold smile. However, even if the sealing rain pagoda only has 10% of its power left, it's still enough to wipe out all cultivators below the void fragmentation realm. Even if we have 1% of our cultivation base, we wouldn't dare to face this pagoda head-on. The more demons and undead creatures killed by this pagoda, the stronger it would become. In order to refine this treasure, Father had used it to kill millions of demons and undead creatures in the past tens of thousands of years. Speaking of which, why isn't 7th brother here? Didn't he say that he was going to teach Ning Fan a good lesson? Why haven't I seen him for a long time? The 7th brother that Yun Zhongyan was asking about was the 7th prince, Yun Jinghong. Jinghong seems to be in urgent seclusion. I wonder if he has touched the bottleneck of the 2nd heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm. Yun Xiaoxiang said with a frown. He's injured. Yun Yomu suddenly said, causing the other 2 princes to turn pale with fright. Injured? Jinghong is a cultivator at the 1st heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm. Who can injure him in this rain world? I have no idea. However, I guess that Jinghong's injuries are most likely related to this little fellow Ning Fan. Don't you think that this little fellow is very interesting? Look at his eyes. They are so persistent. I really want to nurture him and then destroy him. Yun Yomu suddenly opened his half-closed eyes. His eyes glinted like a snake and he licked his lips. Impossible. This Ning Fan is just at the void inquiry stage. He is just like an ant. How could he injure Jinghong? Let's make a bet. Not even the Lianyun mountain range can defeat this young man. He will certainly be defeated by the freezing rain pagoda. Yun Zhongyan said disapprovingly. Is that so? Then let's make a bet. I firmly believe that this young man can sweep across the 8 palaces. However, what exactly is this young man's motive? Has he really comprehended the rain monument, or is he trying to establish his might like what the rumors say in the outside world? I can't tell. Yun Yomu narrowed his eyes and smiled faintly. The gloomy qi in the freezing rain pagoda became denser and denser. Even Ning Fan could feel a trace of bone-piercing coldness. Ning Fan's brows were tightly knitted together. He could sense an extremely powerful baleful qi from the freezing rain pagoda. He did not know what kind of power this pagoda had, but it gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. If he fights against Yunling, even if he wins, he would probably be severely injured by this pagoda, Ning Fan sighed softly. Perhaps he would be injured by this pagoda. Perhaps he might not be a match for this pagoda and be defeated by Yunling. However, no matter what, he could not be afraid of the battle of vast heaven. He could not retreat, all for the sake of gathering the complete 9 heavens rain technique and finding that figure. He must win. His eyes were filled with conviction. The firmness of his conviction was like a dazzling golden light, attracting the attention of countless cultivators. Even if the one standing in front of him is not Yunling, the palace lord of the vast heaven palace, but a void fragmentation realm expert, he must win this battle. No one can stop him. There's no need to say more. Make your move. Ning Fan took a step forward and said with monstrous battle intent. Humph. Since you refuse to come to your senses, I won't show you any mercy anymore. Rain wheel, activate. Yunling pointed at the gigantic pagoda. The pagoda emitted circles of faint silver halos. At the moment when the halos were emitted, circles of gigantic faint silver halos appeared under Ning Fan's feet. They spread across heaven and earth like faint silver ripples. Ning Fan's eyes widened. At the moment when the circles of halos appeared under his feet, his body and mind felt a great danger. Without any hesitation, he retreated rapidly above the sea of clouds. At the moment when he moved to retreat, the circles of halos under his feet suddenly lit up with countless scattered silver light spots. In an instant, millions of silver icicles that were as sharp as swords shot up into the sky from the halos. Their aura force was so strong that it was going to destroy everything in the sky above. Each of the icicles was powerful enough to kill a nascent soul realm cultivator. The combined power of millions of icicles was already infinitely close to the destructive power of a first heavenly layer void fragmentation realm attack. In just an instant, they reached the peak of the firmament, which was so far away that it could not be seen. The firmament shattered along the way, revealing the dark void. A massive wave spread out, causing the entire vast heaven nation to tremble violently. Ear-piercing sounds pierced the eardrums of countless cultivators. Some cultivators with weaker cultivation bases directly bled from their ear orifices. Even though Ning Fan retreated extremely quickly, he was still pierced by many icicles. There were a few scratches on his face, and there was a ghastly bloody hole on his chest which was bleeding profusely. Recalling the terrifying destructive power of the Tower of Freezing Rain, Ning Fan's heart trembled. He was very familiar with those circles of faint silver halos. Is that a spirit wheel? There's no mistake. This Tower of Freezing Rain was an ancient demon spirit wheel magic treasure. It was the same as the blood umbrella and the hand cauldron. However, its destructive power was far beyond the two treasures. If this treasure was not damaged, it would only need a single strike to kill Ning Fan. Not only could it kill Ning Fan, but it could also instantly kill a first heavenly layer void fragmentation realm cultivator. Silly brother, this Tower of Freezing Rain is not simple. If it is not damaged, it is at least an immortal treasure. Be careful. In the profound Yin world, Luo Yu reminded him worriedly. Ning Fan's expression turned solemn. Black starlight flowed within his body and temporarily stopped the bleeding. The injuries caused by the Tower of Freezing Rain were extremely severe. The healing power of his 99 natal black stars was no longer enough to heal them within a short period of time. Ning Fan took a deep breath to stabilize his qi. Then, he shifted his gaze to Yunling. Without a doubt, Yunling had used his full strength to summon the Tower of Freezing Rain as soon as he attacked without showing any mercy. Since that was the case, Ning Fan had to use his true trump card before Yunling's second attack. A wave of black sense power surrounded his body. His eyes gradually turned cold and emotionless. Even if he kills millions of people, he would not blink. His white robes instantly turned into a black robe. His black hair suddenly grew longer and danced in the violent storm. A demonic pattern appeared on the left side of his face. The black robe Ning Fan suddenly took a step forward. His devil qi was monstrous. A vast aura force spread out from his body. This aura force had already reached the level of an ordinary absolute void stage cultivator. Incarnation technique? What kind of incarnation technique is this? It can actually allow a cultivator to instantly possess the cultivation base of an absolute void stage cultivator. Yunling's eyes widened in surprise. He had never seen such a strange incarnation technique before. Countless cultivators in the surroundings exclaimed in surprise. No one expected that Ning Fan actually had such a trump card. When he was in white robes, his cultivation base was only at the void inquiry stage. However, when he turned into black robes, his cultivation base would skyrocket by 2 cultivation levels, reaching the absolute void stage. Yun Yomu revealed a smile as if he had expected it. When he first met Ning Fan, he had already noticed that this young man had hidden his strength well. Yun Zhongyan's eyes turned grim and he said stubbornly, "Incarnation technique, huh? Even if he can forcefully attain the cultivation base of an absolute void stage cultivator using this technique, it's still impossible for him to withstand the attack of the Tower of Freezing Rain. Second brother, how many breaths do you think it will take for Yun Ling to defeat this young man?" Yun Xiaoxiang did not answer him. Instead, he stared at Ning Fan solemnly. For the first time, his eyes carried a hint of inquiry. A moment later, a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. His heart was filled with astonishment. This is the famous technique of Great Emperor Tai Chang, the immortal Emperor Zhang Yan. The third technique of the 8 divine sense formulas, sense soul incarnation. This technique has been lost for a long time. I didn't expect him to find it and successfully cultivate it. Rumor has it that this sense soul incarnation is extremely difficult to cultivate. Every time he cultivates it, regardless of success or failure, he must cut off half of his soul and lifespan. If he fails 3 times and still fails to cultivate it successfully, his soul will scatter and his lifespan will come to an end. In ancient times, before this technique was lost, there were also many people who cultivated this technique. However, among 10,000 people, only 1 or 2 of them could successfully cultivate it. Those 2 people were certainly devils of obsession who could sweep through the sea of blood without any regrets. The rest of the people would die after failing 3 times. This technique has been lost for a long time. Since this young man managed to find it, it means that he has great luck. This technique is extremely dangerous. Since he dares to cultivate it, it means that he has great courage. In the end, he succeeded in cultivating this technique. It means that he is a supreme devil that is 1 in 10,000. This young man must not be underestimated. It's fine if he can't attain the void fragmentation realm in this lifetime, as he will eventually be one of the ordinary people. However, if he has the chance to attain the void fragmentation realm in this lifetime, once he succeeds, I'm afraid no one in the Rain world will be able to suppress him. Not even my father. This young man is someone who is even harder to suppress than Yun Tianjue. I must report this matter to my father. Yun Xiaoxiang no longer had the mood to watch the battle. He directly broke the void and left. At this moment, he must immediately go to the Rain Sovereign's place of seclusion and inform him of his opinion. It was not advisable to harm this young man before he is done using him. However, once he is done using him, he must be eliminated. Otherwise, there will be a second sovereign and second palace in the Rain world one day, which will be on equal footing with the Rain palace. Yun Zhongyan was startled. He did not understand why Yun Xiaoxiang left. Yun Yomu, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes and revealed a disdainful smile. Second brother, have you finally realized how strong this young man is? Hee. The black-robed Ning Fan stood proudly in the sea of clouds. He coldly stepped on the sky and walked towards Yun Ling. Each of his steps carried a spirit sense that could suck away the spirit sense of others. Some of those whose cultivation bases were not strong enough felt an intense pain in their sea of consciousness just by looking at Ning Fan from afar. Their spirit sense felt like it was about to shatter. Yun Ling no longer dared to underestimate the current Ning Fan. At this moment, Ning Fan gave him a strong sense of danger. Looking at Ning Fan, who was approaching him step by step with an imposing aura, Yun Ling did not dare to be careless. He immediately pointed a finger at the sky and activated the pagoda to attack again. Rain wheel appear. Circles of faint silver halos appeared beneath the black-robed Ning Fan's feet. Rays of silver light spots emerged and eventually turned into millions of icicles that pierced towards Ning Fan. Chi, the rainstorm-like icicles rose from beneath his feet. In just an instant, the black-robed Ning Fan's body was pierced into pieces. His body crumbled into long black shadows that spread across the vast sky. Countless cultivators were stunned. They did not expect that Ning Fan could not dodge the attacks of these icicles at all. It was the strongest attack of the freezing rain pagoda. Even a void fragmentation realm expert would not be willing to face this attack head-on. Ning Fan's physical body was shattered by the torrential icicles. Could it be that he is dead? Marquis White Robe actually died under the attack of the freezing rain pagoda. This pagoda is really terrifying. It is indeed worthy of being the supreme treasure that was once the #1 offensive treasure of the Rain Palace. Countless cultivators sighed. He's not dead. Not good. Yun Ling suddenly screamed. 3 chi in front of him, countless black shadows suddenly scattered like butterflies and wrapped around him. At the moment when the black shadows wrapped around him, Yun Ling felt an extreme sense of danger. He wanted to escape, but it was already too late. He was just an ordinary absolute void stage cultivator. He might be able to deal with the void pure stage experts of the 9 palaces, but he was considered a weakling in the absolute void stage. He desperately activated his spirit equipment and armor. However, the armor was instantly shattered by the black shadows. He wanted to activate the freezing rain pagoda to attack the black shadows on his body, but he did not dare to do so. If he activates it, the indiscriminate attack of the freezing rain pagoda would probably kill Yun Ling himself. Stop it. I admit defeat. Yun Ling cried out in fear. The only reply he got was a cold and indifferent voice from the black shadows. It was cold and emotionless. Black Torrent Soul Splitting Technique. Chi countless black shadows engulfed Yun Ling like sword light. Yun Ling let out a blood-curdling scream from within the black shadows. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. The freezing rain pagoda had lost its master's control. It was no longer a treasure and fell to the ground. The black shadows dispersed and condensed into a young man in black robes. He was severely injured. He flicked his sleeve and kept the freezing rain pagoda away. Even though this pagoda is half destroyed, its power is not weak. It's mine now. He clutched Yun Ling's neck and lifted him up. At this moment, Yun Ling's clothes were ragged and dirty blood was flowing everywhere. There was not a single part of his body that was unharmed. He was almost killed by the Black Torrent Soul Splitting Technique. The reason why he was still alive was naturally because Ning Fan had shown mercy to him. Bring me to the vast heaven rain steel. Yes. Yun Ling's face turned purple from fear. Ning Fan could kill him with just a palm strike. How would he dare to disobey Ning Fan's order? Ning Fan was strong. Extremely strong. Even the few old monsters of the Absolute Void stage whom Yun Ling had a good relationship with might not be Ning Fan's match. As for Ning Fan taking away his natal magic treasure, he did not even dare to utter a single word of complaint. The entire Cloud Mountain fell into dead silence. Sounds of gasping could be heard everywhere. The Palace Lord of the vast Heaven Palace, Yun Ling, was also defeated. A dignified cultivator of the Absolute Void stage was defeated in Ning Fan's hands. As for the Yang Heaven Palace, there was no need to look at it at all. Among the 9 palace lords of the 9 great palaces of the Rain Palace, Ning Fan's strength could be said to be the strongest. The Palace Lord of the Scarlet Heaven Palace was invincible. This time, the Palace Lord of the Scarlet Heaven Palace had successfully defeated everyone in the Heavenly Cloud Country. Not to mention the entire Heavenly Cloud Country, the entire Rain World would be shaken. In the Yang Heaven Palace of the second level of the Heavenly Cloud Country. The new Palace Lord of the Yang Heaven Palace was a cultivator who had just advanced to the Void Glimpse stage not long ago. His name was LVG. When LVG received the Jade Slip regarding the battle of the vast Heaven Palace from his subordinates, he trembled in fear. When Ning Fan, who was covered in blood and had monstrous devil chi, appeared in the Yang Heaven Palace, LVG was nearly paralyzed on the ground. Without Ning Fan saying anything, he had already expressed his stance consciously. However, his voice was trembling uncontrollably. Marquis White Robe wants to see the Yang Heaven Rain steal. I don't have any opinion about it. Very well. Lead the way. Ning Fan's cold eyes swept across LVG. LVG felt a sharp pain in his sea of consciousness, as if it was being cut by a knife. His expression became even more fearful, and he was deeply convinced of one thing. Marquis White Robe was very scary. He could offend anyone but not Marquis White Robe. Chapter 551. One day after he left the Yang Heaven Palace, Ning Fan returned to the Cloud Mountain of the Scarlet Heaven territory. On the Cloud Mountain, when the cultivators of the Scarlet Heaven Palace saw Ning Fan, each of them kept quiet out of fear and greeted him respectfully. None of them dared to show the slightest neglect. Even though the seventh prince had ordered several times that no one was allowed to be respectful to Ning Fan. However, now that Ning Fan's prestige had shaken the entire heavenly cloud continent, which low-grade cultivator would dare to be disrespectful to him? Welcome, Palace Lord. Hundreds of revered elders and divine envoys of the Scarlet Heaven Palace came out to welcome them respectfully. Ning Fan only glanced at them coldly and said indifferently, "You may leave." With just a glance, it caused the revered elders and divine envoys present to break out in a cold sweat. That gaze still contained a sharp aura that could sweep through the 8 halls. Ning Fan went to the palace at the belly of the mountain. No one dared to disturb him. After entering the palace, Ning Fan directly went to the Scarlet Heaven Rain Stele. There was an extremely dense rain intent in the rain monument. This was the best place to comprehend the rain art. At this moment, his white robe was stained with blood. He was severely injured. Although he defeated Yunling with the Black Torrent Divine Clone technique, he was also injured by Yunling's Tower of Freezing Rain. That Yunling was just an ordinary absolute void stage cultivator, but he was able to inflict such severe injuries on Ning Fan. If he were to face Guiyuan Taishu, Ning Fan knew that his chances of winning would not be too high. As for Void Fragmentation Realm experts, they could only use their trump cards such as the Heavenly Tribulation Puppets to fight against them. He didn't have time to heal himself. He hurriedly took a 6th Revolution healing pill and immediately got busy. He sat cross-legged under the rain monument and pointed his finger in front of him. Immediately, 9 light silver balls of light appeared in front of him. Every ball of light contained an incomplete rain technique. Among the 9 balls of light, there were a total of 9 forms of rain technique. The rain of the vast sky, the rain of the yang sky, the rain of the red sky, the rain of the vermilion sky, the rain of the forming sky, the rain of the dark sky, the rain of the profound sky, the rain of the changing sky, the rain of the great sky. The 9 heavens rain technique was already in his hands. Next, he needed to start practicing the famous technique of the rain ancestor, sky peaking rain. As long as he successfully cultivates the heaven peaking rain, it would not be difficult for Ning Fan to cover the entire middle province with his absolute void grade spirit sense. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. It was this thought that supported him to sweep through the 8 palaces and comprehend the rain monument. I must find my mother. For this goal alone, even if he had to reveal more of his trump cards, even if he had to incur the wrath of many people, he wouldn't hesitate. Recalling the scenes in the Weeping Blood Forest, Ning Fan closed his eyes in silence. When he opened his eyes again, his expression was calm as he muttered to himself. There are a total of 3 requirements to cultivate the heaven-peering rain. Firstly, he possesses the powers of the god, Yao, and demon races. Second, successfully comprehend the 9 forms of the rain technique from the rain monument and successfully cultivate them. Thirdly, by combining the 9 heavens rain, it will be the sky peaking rain. I possess the power of 3 races, and I've also obtained the 9 forms of the rain technique. Moreover, I've already learned the 3rd Scarlet Sky Rain. Next, I'll practice the other 8 days of the rain technique. Ning Fan opened his mouth and swallowed the 3rd ball of light. He then bent his palm and grasped the first ball of light in his palm to comprehend it. Ning Fan did not care about the injuries on his body that had yet to be healed. His fingers danced in the air as he cultivated the vast sky rain technique in the first ball of light. After a month, the clear sky rain technique was mastered. Ning Fan swallowed the first ball of light into his stomach and summoned the second ball of light to comprehend it. After comprehending the scarlet sky and vast sky rain techniques in succession, he only spent 20 days to comprehend the third form of the rain technique. After completely mastering the current 3 types of rain techniques, Ning Fan tried to display the vast sky rain and yang sky rain at the same time, attempting to fuse the rain of the 2 heavens into one. Each of the rain techniques could allow Ning Fan to sense a distance of 70 million li. If the 2 types of rain techniques are fused together, Ning Fan would at least be able to sense things that are 300 million li away. Unfortunately, there seemed to be a barrier between the 2 types of rain techniques that he could not break through and fuse into one. Ning Fan sighed and temporarily gave up on fusing the rain techniques. Instead, he began to cultivate the last 6 days of rain. With the foundation of comprehending the first few rain techniques, it became much easier to cultivate the last few rain techniques. It only took him 12 days to master the vermilion sky rain, 7 days to master the achievement sky rain, and 3 days to master the hidden sky rain. When it came to the profound sky rain, heaven transformation rain, and great sky rain, Ning Fan spent a day to fully master the 3 types of rain techniques. In 2.5 months, Ning Fan had completely mastered the remaining 8 types of rain techniques and successfully cultivated the 9 heavens rain. There was only one last step left, which was to fuse the 9 heavens rain. Could he succeed in this step? Lonely sky rain. Ning Fan's eyes revealed a solemn expression. He suddenly performed a hand seal and displayed the vast sky rain. His magic power was rapidly consumed. All of a sudden, light rain fell within 70 million li from the scarlet sky cloud mountain. Ning Fan could sense every single blade of grass and tree. Ning Fan took a deep breath and suddenly changed his hand seal. Double sky rain. He tried to fuse the yang sky rain into the vast sky rain to fuse the 2 heavens into one. However, his attempt ended in failure. Did I fail? As expected, the rain ancestors' technique isn't that easy to master. In the profound Yin world, Luo Yu sighed softly. Ning Fan gritted his teeth and clenched his fists tightly. He was unwilling to accept this. He had already obtained the 9 heavens rain technique, but he could not fuse the 9 heavens rain. He knew that his mother was in the middle state and he could find her as long as he fused the 9 heavens rain with the 9 heavens rain, but he still could not completely master this technique. Ning Fan could not accept this result. He suppressed the frustration of failing to perform the technique and consumed a pill to recover his magic power. A day later, his magic power had recovered to about 80 to 90%. He tried to fuse the rain technique again, but he still failed. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 month passed. 2 months passed. 3 months passed. On the 4th month, Ning Fan finally fused the vast sky rain and the yang sky rain into one. At the moment when the 2 styles of the rain technique fused, the area within 300 million li of the scarlet sky realm was like a curtain. Ning Fan could almost see the living beings within 300 million li. However, at the moment when he was about to see them clearly, the feeling of the barrier between the 2 styles of the rain technique appeared again. Ning Fan's sea of consciousness was in extreme pain and he suddenly coughed out blood. The rain technique failed again. I can't fuse the 9 heavens rain. I can't find her with this technique. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with a hint of sadness and he closed them. He had already cultivated the 9 heavens rain to an extremely proficient level, but he still could not fuse them together. It was not because his comprehension was not good enough, but because his rain intent realm was too weak. In the past, Ning Fan had fused the divine intent of rain, the mountain devil intent, and the Fu Li demon intent into one and achieved the 2nd step of intent realm, the memory intent realm. However, the grade of his rain intent realm was still at the level of the 8th grade intent realm. The heaven-peaking rain was extremely heaven-defying. It fused the intent into the rain and used the rain to peek at the sky. If the rain intent was not strong enough, it would not be able to peek at the sky, unless Ning Fan raised the grade of his rain intent realm and cultivated it to a higher level. He would never be able to fuse the 9 heavens rain. Ning Fan. Don't be discouraged. With your current rain intent realm, you can't use the rain ancestor technique. Then, find a way to improve your rain intent realm. Sincerity can move metal and stone. One day, you will be able to master this technique. I have confidence in you. When it comes to cultivation, haste makes waste. In the profound Yin world, Luo Yu consoled him with a rare serious tone. I understand. The principle was easy to understand, but the sorrow was hard to resolve. In the mortal world, if a loved one passed away, everyone would know that the dead could not be resurrected and they should grieve for their loved ones. However, how many of them could really grieve for their loved ones? How could they control the sorrow in their hearts? Ning Fan's eyes were blank and he remained silent for a long time. After a long time, the blankness in his eyes disappeared and he gradually calmed down. He wanted to find his mother as soon as possible, but he couldn't cultivate this technique, so what could he do? He was not a person who liked to sigh. As the sadness in his heart faded, he began to face reality. Since the rain will was not enough, then he would think of a way to increase it. The middle state of the rain world is rich in a type of divine truth stone. It can slightly increase the cultivation of a cultivator's intent realm. Many nascent soul and divine transformation realm cultivators also use this item to comprehend their intent realm. After my injuries are healed, I will borrow the power of the divine truth stone to increase my rain intent. As for now, I should heal my injuries first. He swept through the heavenly clouds and received extremely serious injuries, but he didn't have the time to treat them. He spent half a year cultivating the rain ancestors technique. Originally, his body had the self-healing ability of the Black Star technique. After more than half a year, his injuries had already recovered by 50 to 60%. However, Ning Fan suffered from the backlash of the rain technique several times, causing his sea of consciousness to be damaged. In this way, it would take a lot of time for him to fully recover from his injuries. Since he no longer comprehended the rain technique, there was naturally no need for him to stay under the rain monument. With a sway of his body, he entered the Yuan Yao world and the dark golden pagoda. Then he began to recuperate on the 7th floor of the pagoda. After staying in the pagoda for 3 years, Ning Fan finally recovered from his injuries. 3 years on the 7th floor of the pagoda was only equivalent to 8 to 9 days in the outside world. After changing into clean clothes, Ning Fan began to tidy up the loot he got from sweeping through the heavenly clouds. Since the 5 sword spirits did not have the sword restriction to control them, they were still unconscious. The freezing rain pagoda that he snatched from Yunling was a pretty good magic treasure. Even with his current abilities, he still suffered a lot from this pagoda. With this pagoda in his hand, he even had the confidence to fight against Guiyuan Taishu. Looking at the exquisite silver pagoda in his hand and the ghastly sword wound on it, Ning Fan let out a gentle sigh. On his way out of the clear heaven realm, he had already learned about the origin of this pagoda. This freezing rain pagoda used to be the #1 offensive supreme treasure of the Rain Palace. It could instantly kill a first heavenly layer void fragmentation realm cultivator. Its destructive power was extremely terrifying. It used to be the natal magic treasure of the 4th prince. However, on the day when Yun Tianjue suddenly broke through to the void fragmentation realm and killed the 4th prince, he also destroyed this treasure. Even though the power of this treasure was greatly damaged now, it was still a supreme treasure that was hard to come by. As Ning Fan stroked the sword wound on the freezing rain pagoda, another thought emerged in his mind. He rubbed the sword wound in silence. From the sword wound, he could sense a mad sword intent that was filled with grief. It was left behind by Yun Tianjue. In the past, when he killed the 4th prince, he must have been in a lot of pain. The 4th prince is already dead and Yun Tianjue has lost his memory. The only one who knows the truth of that year is that 7-colored old man. Are the clues still broken? Ning Fan sighed and kept the freezing rain pagoda. With a sway of his body, he returned to the belly of the mountain. After resting for a few days in the belly of the mountain, he had already resolved the battle intent that swept across the heavenly clouds and the sadness of not being able to find his mother. His state of mind was as calm as an ancient well. After leaving the belly of the mountain, he returned to the Scarlet Heaven Palace at the peak of the mountain. To his surprise, Yu Chong happened to be waiting for him in the palace. She had been staying in the palace for a month just to wait for Ning Fan to come out from his seclusion. "Your injuries are all healed." "That's great." Yu Chong was naturally very happy when she saw Ning Fan's breathing was stable. "I just suffered some minor injuries. They are all healed now," Ning Fan said casually. "Minor injuries? You took the attack of the freezing rain pagoda head-on. How could the injuries you suffered be minor?" "That's the freezing rain pagoda we're talking about." Yu Chong stared at Ning Fan as if she was looking at a monster. Even if Guiyuan Taishu was hit by the freezing rain pagoda, he would either die or be severely injured. Ning Fan was hit head-on by the freezing rain pagoda, but his injuries were healed in just half a year. He was really an unkillable cockroach. His life force was just too strong. She stared at Ning Fan with all her might, trying to figure out what was going on. When she met Ning Fan's eyes, her cheeks immediately blushed and she remembered the purpose of her visit. "By the way, the reason why I came to find you is because I have something to tell you. The Rain Sovereign has just come out from his seclusion. He is sorting out the insights he gained from his seclusion this time. I'm afraid he will summon you to see him in a few days." "Is that so?" Ning Fan's eyes were filled with thoughts. He did not know how the Rain Sovereign would feel after he comes out from his seclusion and finds out that he had defeated all 8 palaces. Ning Fan had defeated all 8 palaces and studied the Rain Steel without killing anyone. Everything he did was in accordance with the laws of the Rain World. However, he had revealed many of his trump cards in this battle and defeated Yunling, who was at the Absolute Void stage with his Void Inquiry stage cultivation base. Ning Fan's bone age was merely 900 years old, but he had already become so strong with the Rain Sovereign's tolerance. If he knew that Ning Fan had such potential, he would surely treat him as a threat. Of course, Ning Fan firmly believed that the Rain Sovereign would not attack him before he made use of him. But what about after that? Ning Fan shook his head. Perhaps one day, he would stand on the opposite side of the Rain Sovereign and become the enemy of the Rain Palace. However, it was not a big deal. Currently, Yu Country was guarded by Ming Luo and the Small Sable. Even if the Rain Sovereign came personally, he might not be able to escape unscathed. Ming Luo's clone was already at the 5-break realm. Moreover, if Ming Luo goes all out, he could ignite his demon soul and make his true body leave the Dark Sparrow's grave within a short period of time, sweeping across the Rain world with the identity of a rogue demon. If the Rain Sovereign really wants to attack Yu Country, he would surely die a horrible death. My master has also come to the middle state. I heard from my master that the Rain Sovereign summoned you this time. He will bestow you with some rewards and at the same time, he will give you 4 tests: Heaven, Earth, Profound and Yellow. Tests? Ning Fan was surprised. In the past, when the palace masters of the Rain Palace took office, they would be tested by the 4 great void fragmentation realm experts of the Rain world. At least one of the 4 tests: Heaven, Earth, Profound and Yellow. Only then would they be qualified to become a palace master. You are the only person in the history of the Rain world who directly became a palace master without passing any tests. However, since you have come to the middle state this time, you will naturally have to pass the 4 tests. I see. Ning Fan nodded to show that he understood. In the past, when Yun Tianjue gave him the token of respect for elders, he had also set up a test for him. Since he still needed to pass the test to become a revered elder, it was naturally very normal for him to need to pass the test to become a palace master. There were 4 tests and he only needed to pass one of them. It was not difficult at all. Ning Fan was not worried that the Rain Sovereign would harm him. Before he was used up, he was very safe. For example, even if the Rain Sovereign fell out with all the princes of the Rain Palace, the Rain Sovereign would still support him. The reason I came to you is to give you a gift as thanks for saving me. You mustn't reject it. Yu Chong lowered her head. Her ears were burning hot. After searching her storage pouch for a long time, she gritted her teeth and made up her mind to take out a brocade box. This is for you. You mustn't reject it. Ning Fan received the brocade box and shook his head with a smile. When had he ever rejected a gift from someone? He had never rejected anyone. However, the moment he received the brocade box, his eyes suddenly turned serious. The brocade box was sealed tightly and had yet to be opened. Even so, Ning Fan could still feel the aura of a violent and bloodthirsty ferocious beast from the box. This is a low-grade divine profound spirit equipment. It took me a lot of effort to beg my master for it. If you don't accept it, it means that you are not giving me face. Yu Cheng raised her head with a hopeful look. She was very afraid that Ning Fan would reject this gift. Strange. It's really strange. Isn't it just a thank you gift? Why is she so nervous? Is she sick again? Thank you. This spirit equipment is exactly what I need. I will accept it shamelessly. Ning Fan thanked Yu Cheng with a smile. Yu Cheng avoided his eyes and immediately became speechless. Don't look at me. Take a look at this spirit equipment. Do you like it? Ning Fan opened the brocade box but only opened a small gap. Immediately, a ferocious snow-white beast shadow turned into a ferocious white aurora and rushed towards Ning Fan's head. This beast shadow was actually trying to kill Ning Fan. Interesting. This divine profound spirit equipment is actually so ferocious that it even dares to devour its master. Ning Fan took half a step back and pointed his finger at the snow-white beast shadow. Immediately, the snow-white beast shadow let out a shrill roar as if it was in extreme pain. Chapter 552. After being touched by Ning Fan's finger, the snow-white beast let out a shrill roar. It no longer dared to attack Ning Fan. It turned into a ray of snow-white light and tried to escape. Of course, Ning Fan would never let it escape. He pointed at the sky and stopped the beast in its tracks. Then, he flicked his sleeve and the beast flew into his hand. Upon closer inspection, he found out that it was a palm-sized white tiger. This white tiger was not a living creature. It was formed by the baleful qi in the spiritual equipment. Even though it was captured by Ning Fan, the white tiger was still brandishing its claws and fangs with a fierce expression. Ning Fan shook his palm and shattered the white tiger's shadow. With a flash of light, an ancient dark silver arm guard appeared in his palm. The length of the arm guard was just enough to cover Ning Fan's forearm. It felt cold to the touch and contained a sharp killing qi. The arm guard was carved with images of mountains, seas, and strange beasts. It was well made. Its texture was extremely sturdy. The material used to make this arm guard was definitely not ordinary. Not only did the arm guard have an astonishing defense, but it also contained a killing qi that attracted Ning Fan's attention. If he refined this arm guard, the power of his punches would increase by a terrifying amount. Master said that this spiritual equipment was made by a spiritual equipment master in the heaven immortal world. The material used was the tusk of a heavenly demon white tiger. White tigers are responsible for killing. The heavenly demon white tiger has killed countless people and its baleful qi is very strong. Even Master couldn't suppress the baleful qi of this spiritual equipment. However, I think you should be able to suppress it. You are so powerful. Yu Cheng said with a red face. You really think highly of me? An arm guard made from the tusk of a white tiger. Thank you for giving it to me. I like it very much. Ning Fan touched the arm guard. It turned into a ray of white light and flew back to the brocade box. Then he kept the brocade box into his storage pouch. It's good that you like it. Then I will leave first. Master will scold me again if he can't find me for a month. Yu Cheng stuck out her tongue and left reluctantly on her 5 lines flowing cloud. Logically speaking, she had given Ning Fan the heaven-deceiving cloak, the insect king's blood and the white tiger arm guard. She had already repaid her debt, but why was she still reluctant to part with him? Damn it. Yu Cheng, you must be sick. That's why you can't bear to leave the Scarlet Heaven Palace? Yu Cheng muttered to herself. Miss Yu, please wait. Ning Fan suddenly spoke. What's the matter? Yu Cheng turned around shyly. These body-refining pills are the devil pills of the devil race. They can enhance the body-refining cultivation base of the Jade Life realm. I concocted them in the past and the Rain Palace doesn't have them. If Miss Yu doesn't mind, please accept these medicinal pills. I'm sure they will be of great help to you in breaking through to the second level of Jade Life realm. Ning Fan smiled faintly and took out an exquisite storage pouch. With a flick of his finger, he tossed it to Yu Chong. Since Yu Chong had given him something, he naturally needed to return the favor. Even though these pills were not as precious as the profound divinity spiritual equipment, they could still be considered as a token of appreciation from Ning Fan. This, Yu Chong caught Ning Fan's storage pouch from afar. Her face was as red as a persimmon. She did not expect that Ning Fan would give her something in return. She was completely unprepared and did not know how to reply to him. Her heart was in a mess. She put away the storage bag and ran away like a rabbit. This time, she was very sure that she was really sick. They actually did not dare to speak to Ning Fan anymore. It was too embarrassing. Just as Yu Chong left, Ning Fan received a golden message-transmitting flying sword. It was a message from the Rain Sovereign himself. 10 days later, I'll go to the Rain God Palace. The Rain God Palace was the main palace of the Rain Palace. It was located in the 10th level of the Heavenly Cloud realm and was personally guarded by the Rain Sovereign. After pondering for a while, Ning Fan returned to the belly of the mountain to go into seclusion. 10 days later, he would go to the Rain God Palace to meet the Rain Sovereign. Before that, he planned to refine the White Tiger Gauntlet first. The White Tiger Gauntlet was filled with baleful qi. Ordinary void fragmentation realm experts would not be able to suppress the baleful qi and refine the spiritual equipment. With Ning Fan's baleful qi and the aura force of his Fu Li ancestral blood, it was a piece of cake for him to suppress this spiritual equipment. The defensive effect of this spiritual equipment was secondary. Its main function was to increase the power of his body techniques. In just 3 days, Ning Fan had refined the spiritual equipment into his right arm. For the remaining days, he sat under the steel of the Rain Ancestor to comprehend the Rain intent. On the 7th day, a message-transmitting flying sword flew from the Profound Heaven realm to the Scarlet Heaven realm. It was a message from Yun Bushu to Ning Fan. There was only one sentence in the message. Hide your sovereign qi well. Be careful of revered Ming. After receiving Yun Bushu's warning, Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. He first suspected that Yun Bushu was testing him. Then, he shook his head and denied this thought. He felt that Yun Bushu might have really seen through the sovereign qi in his body. He still remembered that after he condensed the sovereign qi in the past, he was once tracked by a giant eye in the profound Yin world. Revered Ming was the Rain Sovereign's trusted aide, and that giant eye was his heavenly eye. In the past, when Ning Fan condensed the sovereign qi, he shocked the entire Rain world. Countless people were searching for the identity of the second sovereign of the Rain world. The Rain Sovereign was even more frantic in his search. He was looking for people who had a similar back view to that person and killed all of them. Now, the Rain Sovereign was only afraid of Ning Fan because of his innate talent in cultivation. However, he was determined to kill that mysterious sovereign who had condensed the sovereign qi. No one knew that person was Ning Fan. Not even revered Ming knew about it. Ning Fan had hidden his sovereign qi very well. Even when he met Chu Chang and Yun Tianjue, Yun Jinghong, Yun Daoku and other void fragmentation realm experts, they did not know that Ning Fan possessed the sovereign qi. Yun Bushu was the only one who could see through Ning Fan's sovereign qi and gave him a warning. This Yun Bushu was quite capable. If Yun Bushu can really see that I possess the sovereign qi, the Rain Sovereign will certainly be able to as well. I'm going to meet the Rain Sovereign in 3 days. Just in case, I'll hide the sovereign qi for now. Ning Fan hid the sovereign qi in the Yin-Yang locket. This locket was an immortal emperor treasure which could block all senses. No matter how powerful the Rain Sovereign was, he would not be able to sense this sovereign qi. He did not reply to Yun Bushu's message-transmitting flying sword. If he did, it would mean admitting the fact that he possessed the sovereign qi. From the bottom of his heart, He believed that Yun Bushu was a friend who had gone through life and death with his father. Deep down, however, there was still a sense of alienation. It was not something that could be done in a short period of time if one wanted to truly trust someone. On the 10th day, a group of revered elders of the Rain God Palace came to fetch Ning Fan to meet the Rain Sovereign. All of these revered elders had divine transformation realm chi. However, their expressions were dull. Upon closer inspection, each of them was actually a puppet refined from devil cultivators. Ning Fan followed these revered elders to the 10th level of the heavenly cloud realm. Along the way, he was deep in thought. Is the Rain Sovereign purposely sending these devil cultivator puppets to receive Ning Fan to give him a show of strength? Does the Rain Sovereign want to say that if I betray the Rain Palace, I will be refined into a puppet of a devil cultivator? If people don't betray me, I won't betray them. This show of strength is useless against me. The 10th level of the heavenly cloud realm, the ruling sky realm. The ruling sky realm was located at the center of the heavenly cloud country. The other 9 realms surrounded the 10th level, forming a circle around it. Along the way, there was an endless stream of traveling light heading towards the 10th level of the heavenly cloud realm. All of them wanted to go there and watch the show. During the half a year that Ning Fan had been in seclusion, the news of him sweeping across the 8 palaces had spread across the entire Rain world. Today, Ning Fan had truly become a powerful figure in the Rain world. Few cultivators below the Void Fragmentation realm dared to go against him. Even those Grand Void Realm cultivators would probably have to be polite to him. There were hundreds of cultivation cities in the central region of the ruling sky realm. The one at the center was called the Ruling Sky City. The Ruling Sky City was built 90,000 zhang above the Sea of Clouds. There were divine envoys of the Rain Palace guarding the area within 1 million li. Arriving at this place, the divine transformation realm puppets that led the way had already completed their mission and left silently. Ning Fan left those divine transformation realm puppets behind and flew 90,000 zhang above the Sea of Clouds, landing outside the ruling sky city. The moment he landed, a group of cultivators with sharp auras immediately blocked his way. They were the city guards of the ruling sky city. Even though there were only 9 cultivators in this group, 8 of them were at the half-step void refinement realm. The person leading them was even a void glimpse stage cultivator. As soon as the 9 guards saw Ning Fan's appearance, they immediately spoke respectfully. The Rain Sovereign has given an order. If Marquis White Robe is here, you can enter the ruling sky city to meet him. Got it. Ning Fan entered the ruling sky city alone. It was a turtle-shaped giant city. There were not many cultivators guarding the city. The cultivators who occasionally guarded the city were all at the divine transformation realm. After entering the ruling sky city, Ning Fan stepped on the Sea of Clouds. He could faintly sense an extremely vast demonic chi from the ground of the clouds in the city. The soul of a first heavenly layer void fragmentation realm turtle demon was residing in the entire ruling sky city. Most likely, this turtle demon existed as a guard of the ruling sky city. The Rain Sovereign sure is generous. He actually got a void fragmentation realm turtle demon to guard the city. In the central area of the ruling sky city, there was a giant gate with 3 words written on it, Ruling Sky Gate. The person guarding the gate was an elderly man in embroidered robes. His cultivation base was at the absolute void stage. He sat on a cloud tree beside the giant gate with his eyes closed. His expression was extremely cold and arrogant. As soon as he saw Ning Fan's arrival, the elderly man immediately stood up and revealed a rare smile. I'm the Palace Lord of the Rain God Palace, Han Songzi. Greetings to Marquis White Robe. Marquis White Robe, please wait for a moment. I will open the ruling sky gate right away. Lord Rain Sovereign and the 4 Void Fragmentation Realm experts have been waiting for you in the Rain God Palace for a long time. Do I still need to go through this giant gate to enter the Rain God Palace? Ning Fan's gaze swept across the giant gate. After a few glances, he realized that it was the entrance to a small Kiliacosm. The defense of the heavenly cloud 10 realms was impregnable. Even though the ruling sky city was heavily guarded, The Rain Sovereign still hid the Rain God Palace in a small kiliacosm. It was enough to show how cautious and suspicious the Rain Sovereign was. Han Song-zi just smiled in response to Ning Fan's question. He did not answer him. He activated a golden token and the giant gate immediately opened with a rumbling sound. Inside the giant gate was a vast and boundless void world. Inside the void world, there was a majestic palace that shone with dazzling golden light. It was none other than the Rain God Palace. Marquis White Robe, please follow me. Han Song-zi took the lead and went into the giant gate. After pondering for a moment, Ning Fan's eyes flashed with determination and he went into the gate. Then, the giant gate closed up. Ning Fan looked at the gate that was gradually disappearing in the void world. He fell into deep thought and secretly memorized the location of the gate. If something unexpected happens, his wind-mist finger should be enough to tear open this void door and leave with ease. Along the way, he had been thinking about the various scenarios when he met the Rain Sovereign. Even though he was sure that he was useful to the Rain Sovereign and would not be in any danger, nothing was absolute in this world. However, nothing was absolute in this world, and there was nothing wrong with being careful. If there was really danger, he could escape into Yuan Yao world and no one would be able to catch him. The void in front of him was filled with a repulsive force, making it difficult for cultivators to move an inch in the void. Han Song-zi laughed and took out the golden token. Suddenly, a golden bridge appeared in the void, connecting to the main gate of the Rain God Palace. He walked across the golden bridge without any hindrance. Without saying much, he followed Han Song-zi across the golden bridge and entered the Rain God Palace. Inside the main hall, an old man in a silver dragon robe sat coldly on the throne. Below them stood the 4 great void fragmentation realm experts, a few princes, the palace masters and vice-palace masters of the 8 branch palaces and all the sect masters of the righteous sects in the middle state. Only those with great status would be able to enter the Rain God Temple. As soon as Ning Fan entered the Rain God Palace, countless spirit senses immediately swept past him. They wanted to see what kind of abilities this Marquis White Robe who was famous in the Rain world had. Ning Fan smiled faintly. He did not stop them nor did he reveal his aura force. Other than sensing that he was at the void inquiry stage, the people on the scene could not sense anything else. All of them were surprised. This Marquis White Robe's aura is so restrained. He can actually shield himself from our detection. Ning Fan's gaze swept across the sect masters of the various sects in the middle state. When he saw that there were no absolute void stage cultivators among them, he no longer paid any attention to them. His eyes swept across the 8 palace masters indifferently. Most of them were looking at Ning Fan with respect and fear. Ning Fan shifted his gaze away and turned to look at the few void fragmentation realm princes. Among the princes, Yun Tianjue did not come. The 7th prince Yun Jinghong's eyes carried a hint of fear that came from the bottom of his heart. As for the 6th prince Yun Yamu, he was still squinting his eyes with a smile that he did not reveal. When the 5th prince Yun Zhongyan saw Ning Fan enter, he only let out a soft snort. As for the 2nd prince Yun Xiaoxiang, his eyes were deep and his brows were slightly knitted. No one knew what he was thinking. Only the 3rd prince Yun Bushu felt slightly relieved when he saw that Ning Fan did not have any trace of royal qi in his body this time. He winked at Ning Fan and revealed a playful smile. However, he secretly transmitted his voice to Ning Fan again. Be careful of revered Ming. Thank you. Ning Fan replied to Yun Bushu using telepathy while his eyes swept across the 4 void fragmentation realm experts. Among the 4 void fragmentation realm experts, Yun Daoka's eyes carried a hint of fear and dread when he looked at Ning Fan. The dragon determining Valley Lord Chu Cheng, and on the other hand, was frowning. His eyes were filled with hesitation when he looked at Ning Fan. No one knew what he was hesitating about. The Pill Sovereign who had just returned from his travels was also here. He slightly spread out his medicine soul. When he sensed Ning Fan's mid-6th revolution medicine soul, he revealed a satisfied smile. The last person was Yu Chong'er's master, the sect master of the 1000 Fantasy sect, Yun Qingge. This lady had a first heavenly layer void fragmentation realm magic power cultivation base. At the same time, her body refinement realm was at the first heavenly layer of the nirvana realm. She was wearing a large green cloak that tightly wrapped her delicate body. The cloak was green in color and there were patterns of clouds and mist engraved on it. Ning Fan only needed to take a glance at the cloak and he was very sure that it was a profound divinity spiritual equipment similar to the heaven-deceiving cloak. With the cloak covering her delicate body, Ning Fan could not see Yunshinga's specific clothes. Her black hair was tied up in a slanted bun with a green jade hairpin. Her appearance was extremely beautiful and her mist was as light as the clouds and mist. The way she looked at Ning Fan carried an inexplicable cold hostility. Have I offended this woman before? Ning Fan thought to himself. However, no matter how hard he searched through his memories, he could not remember having any relationship with Yunshinga. It seemed a little strange for this woman to show hostility towards him. Ning Fan's gaze eventually fell on the Rain Sovereign. The Rain Sovereign was wearing a silver dragon robe embroidered with cloud patterns. His white hair was tied into a crown, making him look rather dignified. Before Ning Fan arrived, the Rain Sovereign's expression had always been as cold as ice. However, at this moment, the Rain Sovereign was looking at Ning Fan with an extremely gentle smile. The way he looked at Ning Fan was as if he was looking at his own descendant. Behind the Rain Sovereign stood an elderly man in black robes with a cold expression. That elderly man in black robes only had a divine transformation realm cultivation base. However, his body was emitting a strong power of heavenly mystery. Obviously, he was extremely proficient in the Tao of divination. This person's left eye was as cold as a snake while his right eye was already blind. This person was revered Ming who had used the heavenly eye technique to track Ning Fan. Hee. So you are Ning Fan? Not bad. Really not bad. Your bone age is just 900 years but you have already cultivated to this level. In the future, you will certainly break through to the void fragmentation realm and become a pillar of our Rain Palace. The Rain Sovereign's smile was extremely sincere. There was not a single flaw in his words. However, Ning Fan was unmoved. He just cupped his fists politely like Han Song-zi. Scarlet Heaven Palace Lord Ning Fan greets the Rain Sovereign. Hee. You don't have to be so courteous. To us cultivators, empty courtesy is meaningless. The Rain Sovereign suddenly changed the topic and asked. As far as I know, you were born in a low-grade cultivation country, country. May I know who your master is? Black Devil. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold and he only uttered 2 words indifferently. All of a sudden, the entire main hall was filled with the sound of people inhaling cold breaths. Initially, I didn't believe the report from revered Snow. This young man is actually that person's disciple. Even though that person is severely injured and lives in seclusion in the lower world, he is still the lord of the Black Devil country. He is also a figure who can summon wind and rain in the upper world. If Marquis Whiterobe is really that person's disciple, who among us dares to provoke him? Black Devil? Black Devil? We mustn't provoke him. We mustn't provoke him. Ning Fan saw the expressions of everyone in the main hall and sighed softly. It was difficult to conceal the fact that he was the old devil's disciple. Many cultivators in Yu country knew about it. However, only a few of them knew about the old devil's background. If the Rain Sovereign wants to find out Ning Fan's identity, it would not be difficult. If Ning Fan wants to lie, it would be meaningless. Besides, there was no need for him to lie. This identity was a great deterrent to the cultivators of the Middle State and the Rain Sovereign. No matter how much the Rain Sovereign envies Ning Fan, he would certainly be extremely fearful after knowing Ning Fan's identity. Even if the Rain Sovereign wants to kill Ning Fan in the future, he would definitely not dare to let others know about it. He would definitely do it secretly. The Rain Sovereign clenched his fists tightly. His heart was extremely restless. During the 10 years when Ning Fan returned to Yu country and went into seclusion to seek the Void Inquiry stage, the Rain Sovereign had already sent people to Yu country to investigate Ning Fan's background. This investigation was not important, but the Rain Sovereign did not dare to ignore the result. Ning Fan was Old Devil Han's disciple. Moreover, he was a disciple whom Old Devil Han regarded as his own son. With this identity and background, even the Rain Sovereign would not dare to touch Ning Fan recklessly. When the Rain Sovereign came out of seclusion this time, Yun Xiaoxiang reported the matter of Ning Fan sweeping through the 8 palaces. The Rain Sovereign just nodded his head with a cold expression, indicating that he understood. Even though he was narrow-minded, he still knew what was good for him. Even if the old devil was severely injured, he was not someone whom the Rain Sovereign could afford to offend just because of his identity as the master of the Black Devil clan. Unless I find out that this young man is the one who stopped me from becoming an immortal, I can't casually make a move against him. This was exactly what the Rain Sovereign was thinking at the moment. Everything would depend on Revered Ming's investigation. If Revered Ming detects a trace of his sovereign qi from Ning Fan's body, the Rain Sovereign's expression turned cold. If that's the case, he would still secretly kill Ning Fan even if he has a powerful background. No one could stop him from becoming an immortal. The Rain Sovereign waved his hand and stopped the discussions in the main hall. Then, he said to Ning Fan with a polite smile, "I'm just asking casually. I don't mean anything else. Your master's identity is special. Today's question will become the secret of my Rain Palace. It will not be leaked. Marquis White Robe, don't worry. The reason why I summoned Marquis White Robe to meet me today is naturally because I have something to ask of you. I want to borrow your inextinguishable fire body. However, before that, I would like to ask you to pass the 4 tests. This is the rule of the Rain Palace. The tests will be conducted by the 4 Void Fragmentation Realm experts. I wonder if you are ready?" After confirming Ning Fan's identity as his master, the Rain Sovereign began to address him respectfully. Obviously, he was very afraid of the old devil. "I'm ready," Ning Fan replied indifferently. He was not worried about the 4 tests of the Heaven, Earth, Profound and Yellow stages. After he revealed his identity as the Black Devil clan, the Rain Sovereign's hostility towards him had obviously diminished. The tests were just a formality which was dispensable. However, the Rain Sovereign seemed to attach great importance to the 4 tests this time. Could it be that he has some other purpose in these tests? Ning Fan's gaze shifted to Revered Ming, who was standing behind the Rain Sovereign. When he saw a 4-sided compass hidden in his sleeve, his heart suddenly turned cold. Before this, Ning Fan had already inquired about the 4 tests. The tests of the Heaven, Earth, Profound and Yellow stages would be conducted in 4 different heavenly dwelling spaces. The outsiders would not know the specific process of the tests. The compass in Revered Ming's hand was marked with the words Heaven, Earth, Profound and Yellow stage. It seemed like it could sense the entire process of the tests. After connecting the dots with Yun Bushu's reminders, Ning Fan suddenly understood. The Rain Sovereign setting up the 4 tests was a lie. His real purpose was to let Revered Ming examine the sovereign qi inside Ning Fan's body. There must be many dangerous tests in the 4 tests this time which would force Ning Fan to use all of his means and have no choice but to use his sovereign qi. Unfortunately, the sovereign qi has already been hidden by me. You guys are destined to not be able to find anything. Ning Fan took a step forward. At the same time, Chu Chang, and who was among the 4 Void Fragmentation Realm experts, also took a step forward. The first test is the Heaven stage. I will personally preside over it. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Chang's Void Fragmentation Realm aura force swept across the place. He lifted his finger and pointed at the space in front of him. The space in front of him immediately shattered, revealing a door of light, opening the heavenly dwelling with a palm. The eyes of many Void Refinement Realm experts in the palace burned with excitement. There were not many occasions where they could see a Void Fragmentation Realm old monster display this technique with their own eyes. Marquis White Robe, please follow me into this heavenly dwelling space to accept the first test. Chapter 553. Ning Fan followed Chu Chang and into the door of light. Inside the door was a world of clouds. Other than boundless clouds and mist, there was nothing else. Standing in the world of the sea of clouds, Ning Fan's eyes were filled with thoughts. All the clouds and mist in this grotto heaven were a special kind of cloud and mist known as mirage clouds. They could transform into all sorts of illusions, and they could also transform into various terrains and battlefields. The Gate of Heaven's test hadn't started yet. Once it started, Chu Chang and would control these mirage clouds and transform them into the necessary illusions and battlefields for the test. Chu Chang and was dressed in a hemp robe. His hair was fiery red, and his whole body was emitting a fiery aura. He stood in the sea of clouds with a hesitant look on his face. It seemed like he had something to talk to Ning Fan about. That was why he did not start the test of the heaven stage until now. There was a distance of 1,000 zhang between Ning Fan and Chu Chang. "Does old Chu have something to say?" Ning Fan asked. He, this old man does have something to discuss with little friend. This old man wants to make a deal with little friend. Chu Chang's eyes were resolute as he spoke truthfully. A deal? Ning Fan was stunned at first. After thinking for a while, he roughly guessed what kind of deal Chu Chang was talking about. Chu Chang was a demon cultivator of the Blood Dragon clan. In the past, when he was in the Dragon Deciding Valley, he had once sensed a trace of Blood Dragon Qi from Ning Fan's body. Thus, he guessed that Ning Fan was hiding some kind of supreme treasure of the Blood Dragon clan. Back then, with Yun Tianjue's protection, Chu Chang did not pursue this matter in the end. Now that Chu Chang came to make a deal with Ning Fan, it was obvious that he was eyeing the Blood Dragon Demon Sword. The Blood Dragon Demon Sword was made from the bone of a heavenly demon realm blood dragon. To Ning Fan, this Blood Dragon Demon Sword was not very useful. But to Chu Chang, it was a treasure. If he could devour the bone of the heavenly demon blood dragon in the sword, his cultivation would definitely increase greatly. If Chu Chang really wants the Blood Dragon Demon Sword, it's not impossible. He just needs to bring out something of equivalent value. If all the seals on the demonic Blood Dragon Sword were removed, it should be able to reach the power of a celestial sword. Unfortunately, even though Ning Fan has broken through to the first heavenly layer of the Void Fragmentation Realm, his magic power was not enough to remove all the seals and control the immortal sword. To Ning Fan, who had many abilities, this blood sword was extremely useless. If Chu Chang could take out something that could interest him, he would definitely be happy to exchange for this sword. However, if Chu Chang wants to snatch the blood sword by force, Ning Fan was not someone who would suffer losses. The corners of Ning Fan's mouth curled upwards and he looked at Chu Chang meaningfully. I wonder what kind of deal old Chu wants? In other words, Ning Fan was indeed in possession of a treasure of the Blood Dragon clan. Chu Chang understood what Ning Fan meant. His eyes lit up with eagerness. He wished he could immediately snatch Ning Fan's storage pouch and see what kind of treasures of the Blood Dragon were inside. However, as soon as he met Ning Fan's bottomless eyes, Chu Chang immediately calmed down and dispelled that thought. If Ning Fan is an ordinary void refinement realm being, Chu Chang would definitely dare to snatch his treasures. However, Ning Fan was not an ordinary person. Not only did he have the background of the Black Devil sect, but he was also a Sixth Revolution pill refinement master. Thus, he was worthy of being treated as an equal by Chu Chang let out a heavy sigh. He wouldn't offend Yun Tianjue for a single treasure, and he definitely wouldn't offend the Black Demon sect for a single treasure. Since he couldn't rob Ning Fan by force, he might as well make a fair trade. After all, he happened to have an item in his hand which should be what Ning Fan needed. Old Chu, do you want to snatch the treasure? Ning Fan asked with a faint smile. Little friend, you must be joking. I've already told you that this is a trade that both parties are willing to make. I will certainly use an item of equal value to exchange for your treasure. Chu Chang chuckled and raised his head to look at the sky above the sea of clouds. Then he reminded Ning Fan with a meaningful tone. Even though the 4 trials of heaven and earth are located in the heavenly dwelling, who knows that walls have no ears? It's better not to let others see our trade. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Chang took out a blood-red handkerchief and tossed it to the sky. The blood-red handkerchief grew in the wind. In just a few breaths' time, it became so huge that it covered the entire sky. In the outside world, revered Ming's eyes immediately turned gloomy. He could no longer sense anything that was happening in the trial of heaven. What's going on? The Rain Sovereign sensed revered Ming's expression and asked him using telepathy. Chu Chang, and has blocked his senses. Revered Ming gritted his teeth and replied. Chu Chang, and huh? A hint of coldness flashed across the Rain Sovereign's eyes. In the heavenly dwelling, after Chu Chang and blocked revered Ming's senses, he immediately rubbed his hands and smiled apologetically at Ning Fan. This blood-red handkerchief can block the heavenly secrets. Little friend, do you know that this trial of heaven is being investigated by someone using a secret technique? The Rain Sovereign seems to be quite suspicious of you. You have to pay more attention to the 4 trials of heaven and earth. The reason why Chu Chang unblocked revered Ming's senses seemed to be to express his goodwill to Ning Fan. Thank you for your reminder, old Chu. However, I don't have any shameful secrets. It doesn't matter if someone checks on me. If they don't find out what they want, they will most likely dispel their hostility towards me. If I block their senses, it will seem like I'm trying to cover up something that only makes it worse. I'm afraid it will attract more suspicions. Little friend, you're very confident and you're not afraid of being checked. It seems like I've done something unnecessary. After the transaction is over, I will take back this blood-red handkerchief. However, I still want to make a deal with you now. It's better for you to block others' senses. Chu Chang and took a deep breath. He knew that it was time to get down to business. I sensed a trace of a blood dragon's chi from your body. If I'm not mistaken, it's the chi of a blood dragon's bone. Besides, the grade of this blood dragon's bone isn't low. It seems to be the bone of a heavenly demon blood dragon. I want to exchange this bone with you. Chu Chang An's eyes showed a look of seeking confirmation. He wanted to see if his guess was correct from Ning Fan's expression and if that blood dragon's bone was at the heavenly demon realm. However, to his disappointment, Ning Fan was still wearing a faint smile. His eyes were deep and he could not see any emotion from them. Chu Chang and shook his head and asked with a bitter smile. Little friend, please tell me if my guess is correct? What answered Chu Chang and was only a clear sword chime. Ning Fan flicked his sleeve and a long sword that was surrounded by blood light appeared in his hand. It was a long sword that was transparent like a fiery red crystal. There were several seals on it which concealed the power of the magic treasure. Even so, Chu Chang and could still feel a sense of excitement that came from his bloodline from the blood sword. Heavenly demon blood dragon's bone. There's no mistake. This sword is definitely made from the bone of a heavenly demon blood dragon. Young man, give me this sword. Even with Chu Chang and state of mind that had been cultivated for many years, greed rose in his heart the moment he saw the blood sword. He wanted to snatch the sword away and make it his own. However, when he saw Ning Fan's calm eyes, he immediately suppressed his distracting thoughts. He let out a few dry coughs and smiled awkwardly. I'm sorry. I lost my composure. It's all right. It's human nature for a gentleman to love wealth. If you obtain it in a proper way, there's nothing wrong with it. I, Ning Fan, am willing to exchange this sword with you. However, I wonder what you want to exchange with me. Ning Fan held the blood sword upside down and stood there with a smile. He was still calm and composed. With his current abilities, it was more than enough for him to protect himself. He was not afraid of Chu Chang. That tranquil and calm temperament startled Chu Chang. He vaguely recalled his former master. That year, he was still a blood dragon with a low cultivation base. That year, his master was the demonic cloud's Rain Sovereign whose name shook the entire Rain world. When he conquered the 9 worlds, he was still calm and composed even when facing millions of enemies. That calmness was a kind of temperament that could not be affected by danger. It had nothing to do with his cultivation base. Chu Chang and put away his distracting thoughts. His impression of Ning Fan became even higher. Inwardly, he thought that perhaps in less than a few thousand years, Ning Fan would also become a titled Rain Sovereign. Since we've confirmed the grade of the blood dragon's bone, I'm willing to exchange 3 items for it. This is the first item. Chu Chang and flicked his finger. A blood-red storage pouch immediately flew towards Ning Fan. Ning Fan reached out to catch the pouch. After scanning it with his spirit sense, he found out that there were 10 billion immortal jade inside. It's not enough, Ning Fan said indifferently without any change in his expression. Chu Chang, and praised him inwardly. If ordinary void refinement realm experts see 10 billion immortal jade, they would more or less be at a loss. Ning Fan, however, did not show any of his emotions. If it wasn't because this young man's mind was as deep as the ocean, he would not be frightened by 10 billion immortal jade because he was used to grand occasions. Little friend, don't be anxious. There's still the second item. Chu Chang, and flicked another storage pouch. Ning Fan received it and took a look. It contained 10 bottles of illusory sea pills. Each bottle contained 10 pills. There were a total of 100 pills. The illusory sea pill was a mid-grade 6th revolution pill. A single pill could increase a void inquiry stage cultivator's magic power by 5,000 units. It was extremely precious. If Ning Fan consumes all 10 bottles of illusory sea pills, his magic power would increase by 500,000 units. Even with Ning Fan's shrewdness, he could not help but twitch his eyelids. However, he quickly composed himself and said indifferently, "It's not enough." Chu Chang, and smiled bitterly. He knew that it would not be easy to get rid of Ning Fan. Fortunately, he still had the third item for exchange. Chu Chang, and was extremely confident about it. Forget it. Originally, I was reluctant to take this item out because its value is higher than the blood dragon's bone. However, this item is useless to me. Instead of leaving it in my storage, why don't I use it to make a deal with little friend? Chu Chang, and sighed and flicked out the third storage pouch with his finger. Ning Fan received the pouch. Before he could open it to take a closer look, he could already feel a vast lightning power coming from it. He could also vaguely feel that the storage pouch was beating like a heart. After opening the pouch, Ning Fan took a glance at it and immediately took a deep breath. It's enough. Ning Fan kept all 3 storage pouches and flicked his finger, tossing the blood sword to Chu Chang. Inwardly, he still found it hard to believe that Chu Chang and could get his hands on such an item to trade with him. It's enough to exchange for the blood sword. Chu Chang, and caught the blood dragon demon sword. His eyes were burning with excitement. His hand trembled as he caressed the body of the blood sword. He swallowed his saliva. Currently, his cultivation base was only at the 2nd heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm. However, if he has this sword, he would have a high chance of breaking through to the 3rd heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm in his lifetime. This trade could be said to be a win-win situation for both parties. The deal is done. Elder Chu, why don't you start the Heavenly Gate test? However, before that, please remove this blood handkerchief. I really want to let those who are interested see clearly that I'm not the enemy they are looking for. Ning Fan said with deep meaning in his words. All right. All right. All right. I'll remove the blood handkerchief and begin the Heavenly Gate test for little friend. Chu Chang, and was grinning from ear to ear after obtaining the item that he had been yearning for day and night. He raised his hand and kept the blood handkerchief magic treasure. Then he took out a golden token and struck it with a hand seal. All of a sudden, the sea of dark clouds in the Heavenly Gate began to roll and change, creating many illusions. Chu Chang, and's figure gradually disappeared in the sea of clouds and could no longer be seen. The only thing that was still echoing in the sea of clouds was Chu Chang and's reminder. Among the 4 heavenly gates, the first one is the Heavenly Gate. It tests a cultivator's comprehension of the Tao of Void. If you pass the test, not only will you get a great amount of merit points from the Rain Palace, but you will also get a random reward. Ning Fan stood in the midst of the illusions. He patted his storage pouch and took out the Palace Lord token of the Scarlet Heaven Palace. The front of the token was painted with a picture of a sea of clouds. On the north side, there were words that recorded the merit points of the Palace Lord of the Scarlet Heaven Palace. The previous Palace Lord of the Scarlet Heaven Palace was Mo Xiu. He died in Ning Fan's hands. Mo Xiu had a total of 120 million merit points when he was alive. Now, all of them belonged to Ning Fan. These 120 million merit points could be exchanged for treasures in the main hall of the Rain Palace. It was roughly equivalent to 120 million immortal jade. I wonder how many merit points I will get if I pass the Heavenly Gate and what kind of rewards I will get. The first test, the Heavenly Gate, tests one's comprehension of the Tao of Void. While Ningfan was deep in thought, the illusions around him gradually became more real. He could hear the bustling sounds of the market. He was standing in a small town surrounded by a sea of bamboo. The fragrance of wine filled the air everywhere in the town. All of the men were dressed like ancient scholars, and all of them reeked of alcohol. They staggered drunkenly as they walked on the street. Each of the women was gorgeously dressed with heavy makeup. The smell of cosmetics was a little pungent. The air was filled with the strong smell of wine. Every moment he stayed in this place, he would inhale more of the smell of wine and gradually lose his mind. Fortunately, he had already comprehended the true meaning of wine. Even if his body was drunk, he would never be drunk if his heart was not drunk. Ningfan used his magic power to protect his heart. His eyes gradually became clear. Ningfan revealed a thoughtful expression. He lifted his head and looked at the sky. The sun, moon, and stars coexisted in the sky. It was difficult to distinguish between day and night. It was really strange. As Ningfan walked in the bamboo city, the men and women he met along the way were all muddle-headed and drunk. He walked past each of the taverns, past each of the Chu residences and the riverside that was filled with pleasure boats. He walked amidst the music of the flute. Everyone was immersed in happiness. None of them were sober. What is the meaning of this test? Ningfan pondered while walking alone slowly. Suddenly, he stopped in front of a tavern outside of the bamboo forest. Inside the tavern, all the customers were drunk. Even the young shopkeeper was dead drunk. Only a young man in black robes was drinking alone with a cold expression. He did not seem to be drunk at all. His face was extremely ordinary. He was not handsome at all. He wore a light silver earring on his right ear. There was an indescribable temperament around him which was as elusive as the drifting clouds. He did not reveal any trace of magic power or qi. He seemed to be immortal. However, when Ningfan walked closer to the tavern, he slowly raised his head and gave Ningfan a glance. Just a glance was enough to see through all of Ningfan's secrets. Another person who wants to pass the test. The black-robed man lifted the wine jar and gulped down a mouthful of wine. He no longer looked at Ningfan and muttered to himself. Heaven and earth are the reverse journey of all living beings. Time is the passing guest of hundreds of generations. How much joy is there in floating life like a dream? The ancients roamed at night with candlelight. As for the sunny spring, I am summoned by the misty scenery. A large piece of fake me with essays. I will meet the garden of peaches and plums and arrange the happy affairs of family. All the handsome men of the season are connected. I sing songs, I am ashamed of my happiness. Before the serene appreciation is over, the high talk becomes clear. Opening the exquisite banquet to sit on the flowers. Flying feathers and the moon are drunk. If there is no beautiful song, how can I stretch my arms? If the poem fails, the punishment will be the same as the amount of wine. Ningfan's gaze swept across the black-robed man. He felt that this person was unfathomable and immeasurable. Perhaps this person was the key to pass the first test. While Ningfan was thinking, the black-robed man suddenly raised his head and looked at Ningfan with a cold smile. What is void? All of a sudden, a heavy rain swept across the entire illusory realm. Outside the tavern, it was raining heavily. The rain also fell on Ningfan's body. Ningfan had never been afraid of the aura force of any cultivator. However, being suppressed by this person's aura force, he actually felt like an ant on Mount Tai. Who is this person? Ningfan was secretly shocked. In the Rain God Palace, venerated Ming Dao's expression gradually returned to normal. He transmitted his voice to the Rain Sovereign. That Chu Chang, and is quite sensible. He has already removed the bloody handkerchief. He can now sense the heaven test. Humph! At least he is sensible. The Rain Sovereign sneered inwardly, but his expression did not show it. As for the Rain God Palace, Many old monsters were whispering to each other. The first test is the heaven test. It tests a cultivator's comprehension of the Tao of void. In order to pass the test, one must at least have the comprehension of the void pure stage. Marquis White Robe's cultivation base is just at the void inquiry stage. I'm afraid that he won't be able to find the void exit, and it will be difficult for him to pass this test. However, even if he can't pass this test, the benefits he will obtain will not be small. In this test, there is a remnant image of that person. If he can find that person in the illusory realm and have a few words with him, it will be considered as a great opportunity. Don't joke around. Even if a void pierce stage old monster enters the illusory realm, most of their consciousness will be drowned by the wine and they will fail in the end. Occasionally, there are void pierce stage and absolute void stage old monsters who pass this test. All of them manage to find the void exit of the illusory realm before they are completely drunk and forcefully break free from the illusory realm. Who would have the time to find that person? So what if they find that person? Ordinary people can't withstand that person's reign intent at all. There was once a grand void stage cultivator who wanted to pass this test. After going through a lot of hardships in the illusory realm, he finally found that person's figure. However, he was directly knocked out of the illusory realm by that person's reign intent and ended in failure. Sigh. I wonder if Marquis White Robe can pass this test. Chapter 554. With just a glance from the black-robed young man, the endless rain intent carried an unstoppable aura force that nearly pressed Ning Fan to the ground. Ning Fan's bones creaked. He gritted his teeth and refused to yield even though his internal organs were injured by the aura. Towards the black-clothed youth's question, he didn't reply at all. The black-robed young man was slightly stunned. He put down the wine jar and withdrew his aura force. Then he looked at Ning Fan again. After a long time, he spat out 2 words, "Not bad." Although this person had dispersed his aura, the torrential rain still poured down without stopping. Ning Fan secretly activated the power of the Black Star. The injuries on his body instantly healed. Without batting an eyelid, he sat in front of the young man and asked indifferently, "Who are you?" "I am who you say I am. Life is like rain. Passers-by are like clouds, cultivation is like an illusion, and drunkenness is like reality." The black-robed young man drank alone and no longer looked at Ning Fan. The smell of alcohol in the surroundings gradually thickened, and the curtain of rain also began to intensify. The black-clothed youth put down the wine jar in midair and waved his sleeve towards the sky. The rain that filled the sky suddenly seemed to have a mind of its own and flew into the wine jar. In an instant, the rain between the heavens and the earth stopped. All the rainwater had been collected by the young man. As for the wine jar in front of the young man, there was not much wine left and it was still in the air. What I drank wasn't wine but rain. The young man muttered to himself. All of a sudden, he raised his head again and tested Ning Fan. "What is void?" Ning Fan did not give the same answer as before. He was also not in a hurry to answer the young man's question. In fact, he even ignored him. He seemed to have understood something, but there seemed to be a barrier that he could not see through. His comprehension of the word void had already reached the void inquiry stage, and he was only half a step away from the void pure stage. At the void inquiry stage, what you see is not the void. When it came to the void pure stage, it was still a void. Ning Fan suddenly raised his hand and pointed at the outside of the tavern just like what the black-robed young man did. Immediately, a curtain of rain fell from the surroundings of the tavern. 8th grade rain intent. The black-clothed youth remained calm and continued drinking. Ning Fan did not talk to the young man. He bent his palm and waved. The rainwater condensed into a crystal-clear empty wine jar. Then he pointed to the sky, and all the wine in the sky fell into the wine jars, and the rain stopped once more. From the beginning to the end, Ning Fan did not utter a single word. He held up the wine jar and sat opposite the black-robed young man. The young man in black had a strange look in his eyes. A moment later, he smiled with approval. "Not bad." This was the second time he praised Ning Fan. The first time was because of Ning Fan's unyielding pride. The second praise was for Ning Fan's comprehension ability. I just don't know how many more days you can sit here and how much rain you can drink. Ning Fan's mind was as calm as still water. He held the wine jar by himself and drank the rainwater. The rain was light and tasteless, but there was a never-ending feeling of rain in it. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. From the beginning to the end, Ning Fan continued to drink by himself, behaving like the black-robed young man. Every year that passes, Ning Fan's rain intent would increase a little. Every year that passed, Ning Fan's face would become paler and his life force would be drained away rapidly. A year in the illusion was a day in the outside world. Ning Fan sat in the illusory realm for 60 years while only 60 days had passed in the outside world. In the Rain God Palace, all the Void Refinement Realm cultivators were shocked. The illusory realm of the Heaven Gate had an extremely strong wine chi. Even a Void Pierce stage expert would not be able to stay inside for more than a day. Even the old monsters of the Absolute Void stage could only stay inside for around 3 days. Marquis White Robe actually stayed inside for 60 days. This is really unbelievable. Since the creation of the Rain World, there has never been a Void Refinement Realm cultivator who could stay inside the Heaven Gate for 60 days. Revered Ming's expression turned solemn. He had been waiting for Ning Fan to use his sovereign chi to protect his body and resist the wine chi. However, from the beginning to the end, Ning Fan did not activate any trace of his sovereign chi, making him feel somewhat at a loss. "How's the situation?" the Rain Sovereign asked through telepathy. "There is nothing unusual in the Heaven Gate. It's just that." Revered Ming wanted to say something but hesitated. "Just what?" The Rain Sovereign's eyelids twitched. "It's just that I can't see through him. I don't know what he is actually doing inside the Heaven Gate." No one in the outside world knew what Ning Fan was actually doing. The only ones who could understand it were the black-robed young man and Ning Fan, who was drinking the rain alone. He had been sitting inside the wine shop for 60 years. On the 13th year, his 8th grade rain intent advanced to the 7th grade rain intent, but his face became paler and paler. On the 41st year, his 7th grade rain intent advanced to the 6th grade rain intent, but its chi became weaker and weaker. On the 60th year, his 6th grade rain intent was on the verge of breaking through to the 5th grade rain intent, but there was a barrier that prevented it from doing so. At this moment, Ning Fan's breathing was extremely weak. He was on the verge of death, as if he would die at any time. "You have already reached your limit." The black-robed young man put down the wine jar and said regretfully, "With your cultivation base, it is already surprising that you can stay here for 60 years. You can leave now." As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his hand and pointed at Ning Fan. Immediately, a door of fine rain appeared behind him. "Perhaps that door is the exit of the illusory realm." Ning Fan acted as if he did not hear the young man's words and did not see the door of rain beside him. It was as if he had forgotten everything in the world. In his heart, there was only that small wine jar which contained all the rain in this world. The 61st year, the 62nd year, the 63rd year, Ning Fan was still drinking alone in the wine shop. The illusory realm around him gradually became fainter and disappeared. Each of the drunken scholars and beauties slowly disappeared in the illusory realm. The bamboo sea city disappeared, the rivers disappeared, the pleasure boats disappeared, and the music of the flute that lingered in his ears also disappeared. In the end, Ning Fan was the only one left in this world. He held the wine jar and drank alone. In front of him, there was only the black-robed young man who praised him for the 3rd time. Not bad. It was the 100th year in the illusory realm. In this year, Ning Fan's rain intent realm was just a tiny bit away from breaking through to the 5th grade. In this year, other than the black-robed young man in front of him, Ning Fan had destroyed the entire heavenly pass. The reason why he drank the rainwater was to imitate the black-robed young man and increase his rain intent realm. He remained silent and was comprehending the Tao of the Void Pierce stage. At the Void Pierce stage, looking at the illusory realm was still illusory. It was a kind of enlightenment that came after one had seen through all the profound mysteries of the word illusory. He did not talk to the black-robed young man because in his eyes, everything around him was illusory and he was the only real existence. The deeper his Tao enlightenment was, the fainter the illusory realm around him became. After 100 years of Tao enlightenment, the entire illusory realm finally disappeared. The correct door to leave the illusory realm was not any door of void. What Ning Fan wanted to understand was to turn the illusory realm into illusory. If the illusory realm becomes illusory, it would mean that he had never entered the illusory realm in the first place. Since he never came, why should he leave? Therefore, when the black-robed young man pointed the way to him, Ning Fan ignored him. That door was not the correct way. Amazing! After you, there is no more heavenly pass in the rain world. This pass has been destroyed. I didn't expect that there would be such a person in the future. The younger generation will really surpass us in time. I came from the rain and I shall go with the rain. Now, I will help you break through to the 5th grade rain intent and grant you another drop of rain. Banged as the black-robed young man was laughing, his figure suddenly collapsed, turning into tiny silver raindrops that went into Ning Fan's body. All of a sudden, the heavenly pass collapsed. In an instant, the heavenly dwelling collapsed. Ning Fan and Chu Chang appeared in the rain god palace at the same time. All of a sudden, a 5th grade rain intent rose around Ning Fan's body and swept across the entire rain god palace. The heavenly pass has collapsed. What exactly did Marquis White Robe do inside that he actually destroyed the heavenly pass? The 4 passes of the heaven and earth pass were left behind by the rain ancestor. The rain ancestor once said that only those who truly understand the mysteries of the 4 passes can destroy the heavenly pass. Could it be that Marquis White Robe has found the correct way to break the heavenly pass? 5th grade rain intent. Marquis White Robe's rain intent has actually reached the 5th grade. This is really unbelievable. Even the Rain Sovereign only has a 4th grade rain intent. If Marquis White Robe's comprehension of his rain intent improves further, wouldn't he be on the same level as the Rain Sovereign? What about the Rain Ancestor? Did he find the remnant image of the Rain Ancestor in the illusory realm? Everyone wore an astonished expression. Even the Rain Sovereign was deeply shocked. Revered Ming was even more astonished. He was the only one who witnessed Ning Fan breaking the illusory realm from the beginning to the end. He did not understand what Ning Fan was doing at all. He could not understand it at all. What he could not understand the most was that the Rain Ancestor's remnant image actually destroyed itself to help Ning Fan break through the bottleneck of his divine intent. So that person is the Rain Ancestor. Thank you, Ning Fan muttered to himself. Even though he had not paid attention to the Rain Ancestor for 100 years, it was all thanks to the Rain Ancestor that his rain intent could break through to the 5th grade. The rain intent that was at the 8th grade had advanced to the 5th grade after passing through the heavenly pass. According to Ning Fan's estimation, if he could cultivate his rain intent to the 1st grade, he would be able to display the technique of the Rain Ancestor, heaven-peaking rain. Congratulations to Marquis White Robe for breaking through the heavenly pass. Marquis White Robe has remarkable abilities and profound Tao comprehension. We are ashamed of our inferiority. Compliments could be heard from the surroundings. Ning Fan just nodded his head slightly and did not have the intention to pay attention to those people. He patted his storage pouch and took out the Scarlet Heaven Palace Lord token. The Hall Leader badge glowed, and the merit points marked on it increased by 10 billion. 10 billion merit points. Marquis White Robe actually obtained 10 billion merit points after breaking through the heavenly pass. In the Rain Palace, no one below the Void Fragmentation Realm has more merit points than Marquis White Robe. Look! What is that white light? It's the reward for passing the heavenly pass. Tis impossible. All of a sudden, silver light shone brightly in front of Ning Fan. Then, a drop of rain emerged. It was just a drop of rain, but it contained terrifying bloodline power. It gave off an ancient aura force that made everyone's blood boil. In front of this drop of rain, even the Rain Sovereign could not remain calm. It's the natal blood rain of the rain ancestor. But why can this young man, a mere devil cultivator, obtain such a reward? I don't understand. In just an instant, that drop of rain entered Ning Fan's body and melted in his bloodline. Ning Fan looked inside his body and his eyes widened. It was a drop of rain. It was the natal blood rain of the rain ancestor. If one day, Ning Fan could cultivate his rain intent realm to a certain level, he could gradually refine this blood rain and eventually turn it into a drop of ancestral god blood. At that time, Ning Fan's divine bloodline would ascend to the heavens in a single step and advance to the ancestral level. Of course, if Ning Fan's rain intent realm was not strong enough and he could not refine this rain, he would not be able to obtain any benefits. This young man has obtained the natal blood rain of the rain ancestor. No one can take it away from him. If this young man can refine it and bestow it to him one day, he will possess ancestral-level divine blood. How can a devil cultivator have ancestral-level divine blood? How is this possible? The Rain Sovereign could not hide his jealousy towards Ning Fan. His divine bloodline was just at the true blood realm. It was not even at the level of a king-level divine bloodline. However, no matter how jealous he was of Ning Fan, there was nothing he could do about it. He could not take away the gift of the Rain Ancestor. This was Ning Fan's fortune and it did not belong to him, the Rain Sovereign. Considering Ning Fan's background in the Black Devil sect, the Rain Sovereign let out a few dry coughs to stop the discussions in the Rain God Palace. Then he forced out a smile and said, Marquis Whiterobe has spent 100 days to pass the first stage. It's a little too long. Even though 100 days is just one meditation session for cultivators of our generation, it's better to start the second stage as soon as possible. Just as the Rain Sovereign finished speaking, Yun Dao Ku, who was one of the 4 void fragmentation realm experts, stepped forward with a cold expression. He was going to preside over the Earth stage test for Ning Fan. According to the news, King Chi Yao, who was raised by Reverend Dao Ku, was killed by Marquis Whiterobe. I wonder if Reverend Dao Ku will make things difficult for Marquis Whiterobe today? Reverend Dao Ku has always been vengeful. Perhaps he will punish Marquis Whiterobe in the Earth stage. Some of the old monsters secretly guessed and discussed among themselves. Yun Dao Ku's expression was extremely cold. His eyes were so terrifying that they could devour someone. No void refinement realm expert dared to provoke him. Yun Dao Ku's expression was extremely cold and gloomy. His eyes were so terrifying that they could devour people. No void refinement realm cultivator would dare to provoke him. His ice-cold gaze shifted to Ning Fan and he saw Ning Fan's meaningful smile. All of a sudden, Yun Dao Ku, whose eyes were cold and gloomy, actually squeezed out a smile. He opened a heavenly door of light with his palm and smiled apologetically at Ning Fan. Cough cough. Marquis Whiterobe is still as elegant as ever after we parted ways in the endless sea. The Earth test will be presided over by this old man. What it tests is the firmness of a cultivator's Tao heart. I hope Marquis Whiterobe will cooperate with this old man's assessment. Don't casually use your great divine ability. It's too dangerous. Many old monsters who knew Yun Dao Ku well were so shocked that their jaws dropped. Yun Dao Ku, who had always thought highly of himself, was actually so polite to Ning Fan. Didn't he have a personal grudge against Ning Fan? Yun Dao Ku actually asked Ning Fan not to use his great ability and said that it was dangerous. Is he afraid of Ning Fan? But why would a void fragmentation realm old monster be afraid of a void inquiry stage junior? These old monsters would never understand how much Yun Dao Ku feared Ning Fan after he was burned by the void ignition technique. That kind of fear could only be understood by those who had experienced it. Ning Fan nodded and followed Yun Dao Ku into the light door, entering the heavenly dwelling space of the Earth test. It seemed like Yun Dao Ku had learned his lesson. He would not make things difficult for Ning Fan in this test. Unlike Chu Chang, Yun Dao Ku did not talk to Ning Fan. Moreover, he did not dare to stay alone with Ning Fan for too long. After entering the heavenly dwelling, Yun Dao Ku let out a hollow laugh and immediately activated the mirage cloud, creating the illusory realm of the second test. The scenery in front of Ning Fan changed rapidly. With a flash of light, Ning Fan already appeared at the foot of a gigantic mountain. It was unknown how tall this gigantic mountain was. He could not see its peak at all. There was only a mountain path leading to the peak of the mountain. The path was paved with jade steps. The entire illusory realm prohibited flying. Ning Fan was strong enough to break it. However, once he breaks it, he would fail the second test. In the second test, he must climb to the peak of the mountain at all costs. No matter how dangerous it is along the way, how difficult it is to climb, or how many temptations there are along the way, he must not retreat or use tricks to escape. Even if this gigantic mountain does not have a peak and the mountain path has no end, he must not stop moving forward. Only those who have such perseverance can pass the test with their Tao heart. If their Tao heart is not firm, how can they pursue the elusive great Tao? This is the Tao mountain, that ancestor you built. Those jade steps are the Tao stairs. Every time you climb a step, you will age a little. There will be many dangers along the way. Marquis White Robe, you must be careful. Yun Daoku actually transmitted his voice to Ning Fan to remind him. Was he trying to ease the tension between the two of them? The corner of Ning Fan's lips curled up slightly. He took a step onto the first step of the Tao stairs. In an instant, a little of his life force disappeared. He lost 1 day of his lifespan. Chapter 555. Will I lose a day of my lifespan after ascending the first step? Ning Fan was stunned at first. Then, he wore a contemplative expression. His eyes swept across the surroundings and found an ancient silver-colored stone tablet at the foot of the mountain. There were 5 words carved on it. It was a divine seal script. 1 step means 1 day of life. Sure enough, just like what he had guessed, he would lose a day of life every time he ascended the Tao stairs. It's a test of my Tao heart, huh? Ning Fan's eyes darkened. He lifted his foot and ascended the second step. After ascending the second step of the Tao stairway, he lost another day of lifespan. He stood still as if he was deep in thought. However, he was not frightened by the Tao stairs that could reduce his lifespan. To Ning Fan, who still had 20,000 years of life left, a few days of life was not worth mentioning. As he ascended the stairs step by step, he would lose a day of life for each step he ascended. When he stood at the 365th step, he lost a year of life in total. When he ascended to the 730th step, he lost a total of 2 years of life. When he ascended to the 730th step, his eyes became deeper and deeper. When he ascended to the 3650th step, he had already lost 10 years of life. On the hillside next to this step, there was a second ancient stone tablet with 5 words carved on it. 1 step means 1 year of life. Ning Fan frowned. Could it be that from this step onward, every time he ascends the next step, he would lose a year of life instead of a day? Losing a year of life for every step he took. Even Ning Fan had to think twice before he acted. After pondering for a while, Ning Fan took a step forward and ascended to the 3651st step. In an instant, his lifespan was reduced by 1 year. As if he did not feel anything, he continued ascending the 200 steps. When he stood at the 3850th step, he lost another 200 years of life. On the hillside next to him, there was a third stone tablet with 5 words carved on it. 1 step means 10 years of life. Ning Fan thought to himself, could it be that from this step onward, I will lose 10 years of life for every step I take? Looking up along the mountain path, he would see the 4th stone tablet after another 200 steps. With his eyesight, he could vaguely see the inscription on it. It was still 5 words. 1 step means 100 years of life. After ascending 200 steps, there were still the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th stone tablets. As for the details, he could not see it clearly. Ning Fan closed his eyes and hesitated. This Tao ascending staircase of the Earth stage would actually reduce one's lifespan. Moreover, the higher one climbed, the greater the loss of lifespan would be. It was clearly unwise to continue climbing. Even though Ning Fan had 20,000 years of lifespan, he would die of old age in the earth pass if he loses 100 or 1,000 years of his lifespan with each step he takes. Should he give up? This trial will reduce my lifespan. Why not give up on the earth trial? But why would climbing the Tao mountain cost one his lifespan? What was the profound meaning behind the rain ancestor setting up this test? Ning Fan closed his eyes and cleared his mind of all distracting thoughts. He could only hear the sound of the mountain breeze caressing his face. His mind became more and more tranquil, and gradually he could no longer hear the sound of the wind. Gradually, he sensed a mysterious and bewitching power hidden in the mountain of the way beneath his feet. This power was extremely mysterious and contained the Tao power of controlling life and death. Life? Death? Ning Fan raised his head and looked at the boundless Tao stairs. His eyes gradually deepened as if he could see through everything. In the first half of this staircase, every step of the jade stairs was surrounded by death qi which could take away one's life force. However, from the fifth stone steel onwards, the jade stairs were surrounded by life force which could replenish one's life force. The rain ancestor certainly would not set this test to take away the lifespan of the juniors. The first 4 stone steels took away one's lifespan with each step. The last 4 stone steels returned the lifespan to the juniors. From life to death and from death to life. During this process, cultivators could sense life and death. This was a chance to comprehend life and death and to ascend to the immortal realm. If one's Tao heart was not firm, most of them would directly give up when they see that climbing the Tao stairs would reduce their lifespan. Only those with a firm Tao heart would persist in climbing the stairs. Only when they reached the 5th stone steel, their lifespan would return and they would obtain a chance to comprehend life and death. In the first 4 stone steels, every step I take will gradually age and bring me closer to death. Among them, there is the great Tao of death. Ning Fan formed a hand seal with his fingers and displayed the immemorial fishing line's ability. Traces of black fishing line twined around his fingers. His eyes strangely turned pure black and his body was surrounded by death qi. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Ning Fan climbed higher step by step. Every step he took, he would lose 10 years of his lifespan. He did not stop moving as if he did not feel anything. After 200 steps, he reached the 4th stone steel. He had already lost 2,000 years of his lifespan. From this step onwards, every step he took would cost him 100 years of lifespan. Without any hesitation, Ning Fan climbed higher step by step and walked towards the 5th stone steel. 1 step would take 100 years, 10 steps would take 1,000 years, and 100 steps would take 10,000 years. From the 4th stone steel to the 5th stone steel, he would need to climb 200 steps which would cost him 20,000 years of lifespan. Normally, most of the cultivators who continuously climbed to this point would retreat in fear. However, Ning Fan's heart was neither confused nor fearful. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Ning Fan's lifespan was gradually depleted and his face began to turn old. When a cultivator's lifespan was about to reach its end, he would gradually show signs of aging. His life force was depleting rapidly and the death qi became denser and denser. From a young man, he would gradually turn into a middle-aged man. Then he would turn into an old man. His black hair turned white and wrinkles appeared on his face. His back began to hunch. Only his eyes remained pure black. They were so calm that it was a little scary. His flesh and blood began to wither. His sea of consciousness began to dry up. His physical body seemed like it was about to turn into ashes and dissipate. Only his Tao heart was as firm as a rock. It would not be shaken by anything. After 200 steps, Ning Fan reached the 5th stone steel. At this moment he felt like he was about to die. However, his eyes were unprecedentedly deep. At this moment when he was on the verge of death, he had an unprecedentedly deep feeling towards death. This is death. Ning Fan examined his dantian. Inside his dantian, a wisp of pure black death qi was slowly being nurtured. This was the power that countless rogue immortals had cultivated and comprehended in their entire lives. It was because in order to become an immortal, one must first comprehend life and death. Becoming an immortal didn't necessarily mean that one could achieve immortality. Instead, Only those who could achieve immortality were worthy of being called immortals. Ning Fan only had a wisp of death qi. However, it was like a seed that planted the Tao of death in his heart. As his comprehension of the Tao of death increases, this seed would eventually take root and sprout, becoming a great help for him to break through to the immortal realm. Losing 20,000 years of lifespan in exchange for a near-death experience isn't a bad deal. However, I still have to get my lost lifespan back from the Tao Mountain. Ning Fan's face was old and his voice was hoarse. His eyes, however, were firm and persistent. His gaze shifted to the 5th stone stele. 5 words were carved on it using divine seal script. 1 step returns 1 day. From the 5th stone stele onwards, the Tao Mountain would return the lifespan that the cultivator lost with each step he took and each step he ascended. Ning Fan dispersed the death qi around his body. Then, he formed a hand seal and displayed the ability of the fishing net of fortune. This technique contained the Tao of life. At the moment he displayed it, Ning Fan's eyes turned pure white and his body was filled with dense life force. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Ning Fan continued to climb, passing through the 6th, 7th and 8th stone steles. Each step he took was 1 day. Each step he took was 1 year. Each step he took was 10 years. Each step he took was 100 years. His lifespan was returning to his body bit by bit. His appearance gradually became younger. From an old man, he turned into a middle-aged man, and then from a middle-aged man, he turned into a young man. His white hair gradually turned black. His complexion gradually became smoother. His eyes became as deep as the ocean. Inside his dantian, a trace of pure white life qi was born. At the moment when the white qi was born, the black and white qi in his dantian intertwined and formed a ring that was half black and half white, coiling around his primordial spirit. The primordial spirit in his dantian opened its eyes. Its 2 tiny hands reached out and grabbed the black and white qi, swallowing them in 1 gulp. Immediately, the tiny primordial spirit revealed a satisfied smile. Not bad. At this moment, Ning Fan's aura force soared. The black and white qi in his eyes flashed for a second. Standing at the 8,500th step, the corner of Ning Fan's lips curved into a smile. After accumulating the life and death qi in his body, his abilities and magic power did not improve. However, his Tao heart became unprecedentedly clear and his Tao comprehension became even deeper. The Rain Ancestor is quite thoughtful. He actually left behind the Tao stairway for the cultivators of the Rain world to comprehend life and death. However, I wonder what is at the higher levels. Ning Fan glanced sideways at the 9th stone stele. The 9th stone stele was erected on the hillside at the side. There were 5 words written on it. Kill 1 in 10 steps. He pondered for a while and slowly walked up to the 10th step. Immediately, a golden light flashed in front of him and the shadow of a burly man in golden armor appeared. This burly man in golden armor had a void glimpse stage cultivation base. He was the manifestation of the trace of sovereign qi left behind by Ancestor Yu. Moreover, this burly man was born from the Cloud Mountain and took form from the sovereign qi. Unless he is attacked by the sovereign qi, he would not dissipate easily. The moment the burly man's expression appeared, he immediately scolded Ning Fan coldly. Get down from the Tao Mountain. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. He had the sovereign qi in his body. Of course, he had a way to kill this golden-armored shadow. However, doing so would inevitably expose his sovereign qi. Perhaps revered Ming was carefully observing the illusory realm at this moment, hoping to see the scene where Ning Fan used his sovereign qi to kill the shadow. Ning Fan shook his head. In order to kill the golden-armored shadow, perhaps he could only rely on his sovereign qi. However, this stage was a test of one's Tao heart and not one's abilities. It did not mean that he had to kill the golden armor to pass the test. Ning Fan no longer looked at the golden armor. He directly walked forward and climbed the next jade step, passing by the golden armor. The golden armor was enraged. He turned around and threw a punch at Ning Fan's back. Ning Fan directly summoned his primordial lightning armor and completely ignored the fist light of the golden armored shadow. That fist light merely had the destructive power of a void glimpse stage attack. It could not break the destructive power of the primordial lightning armor. Ning Fan climbed up calmly. Every time he climbed 10 steps, a void glimpse stage golden armored shadow would appear. However, none of them could hurt Ning Fan. Gradually, Ning Fan no longer paid attention to those shadows. Unknowingly, all of them had disappeared. What replaced them were the shadows of heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures that would appear from time to time on the Tao stairs along the way. There were also enchanting women with all kinds of temptations. Ning Fan walked all the way up the Tao stairs. His Tao heart was as hard as a boulder. He did not even look at those shadows. However, this Tao mountain did not seem to have a peak at all. No matter how long Ning Fan walked, he could not reach the end. This was the Tao mountain. The Tao was boundless and the mountain had no peak. The path of cultivation had no end in the first place. On the path of cultivation, it was hard to say who was the strongest. In the mortal world, a vein-opening realm expert was an unrivaled immortal master. In a low-grade cultivation country, a gold core realm expert was the old ancestor of a country. In the rain world, a void fragmentation realm expert was the ruler of a world. In the four heavens, perhaps immortal emperors were the true rulers. However, immortal emperors were still not the strongest. There was no peak in the path of cultivation. However, if one were to look back, which cultivation realm was not the peak? The starting point of today was the peak of yesterday. The peak of today was the starting point of the next year. Ning Fan no longer raised his head to look at the peak of the mountain. Instead, he lowered his head and looked at the path under his feet. Gradually, the Tao mountain no longer appeared in front of him and the Tao stairs under his feet. After walking for an unknown period of time, he suddenly stopped walking. He raised his hand and patted his chest. Then he smiled gently. The Tao heart is the Tao heart. The Tao is in the heart. The Tao mountain has no end in the first place. The end is not at the peak of the mountain but in the heart. If I say this place is the peak of the mountain, then this place is the peak. Chi Ning Fan touched his glabella. Starlight flashed and the Separation Slayer sword appeared in his hand. He raised his hand and slashed at the Tao mountain. He's cutting his Tao. Luo Yu suddenly cried out in surprise as if she had seen something shocking. Ning Fan had already found the real way to pass the stage, which was to flatten the Tao mountain with a single slash of his sword. Then, wasn't the place where he was standing at the peak of the mountain? This was the correct way to pass the stage. Besides, it was the most important step for a true immortal to transcend time and become an immortal emperor. Immortals were people who stood on the mountain, while immortal emperors were certainly people who stood at the peak of the mountain. However, the path of cultivation was boundless and the Tao mountain had no peak. In order to stand at the peak of the mountain, one must cut his Tao. Only by cutting off the unnecessary and untraceable Tao and leaving the Tao beneath one's feet could one become an immortal emperor. Luo Yu could not believe that Ning Fan actually cut his Tao with a single slash of his sword. No one had ever told Ning Fan that he needed to cut his Tao to break through to the immortal emperor realm. It was really terrifying that he could comprehend it to this stage with just his own comprehension ability. Obviously, only immortal emperors could cut their Tao. Ning Fan was currently unable to destroy the Tao mountain. Even though his sword strike was powerful, it only made the mountain tremble slightly when it landed on it. Then, everything returned to normal. His sword strike did not even leave an inch of mark on the Tao mountain. It's a pity. Even though I've seen through the true method to pass this stage, my cultivation base is far from enough to pass it. In the past, Ancestor Yu roamed the 4 heavens and 9 worlds unhindered. The strength of his abilities could even shock immortal emperors. He left behind 4 stages of heaven and earth. Perhaps this earth stage was left for his descendants to cut their Tao and become emperors. It's a pity that Ancestor Yu would never expect that the rain world would fall to such a state after his death. There are no immortals in the rain world and there are only a few void fragmentation realm experts. I'm afraid no one can break this Tao mountain. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, rays of light suddenly rose around his body, teleporting him out of the illusory realm. Even though he did not break the Tao mountain and destroy the Earth stage, he still found the correct method to pass the stage. Thus, he could be considered to have passed the stage. With a flash of light, Ning Fan and Yun Daoku appeared in the Rain God Palace at the same time. All of a sudden, the entire Rain God Palace was filled with exclamations. "Oh my God! Marquis White Robe has actually passed the Earth stage. Only a few people can pass the Earth stage. That's right." The last time someone passed the Earth stage seemed to have been hundreds of thousands of years ago. Out of the 4 stages of heaven and earth, it is already very difficult for ordinary void refinement realm cultivators to pass even one stage. Marquis White Robe has already passed 2 stages consecutively. Rumor has it that he is a 6th revolution pill master. I'm afraid it won't be difficult for him to pass the 3rd test. Today, Marquis White Robe has passed at least 3 of the 4 tests of heaven and earth. How terrifying! I wonder what kind of Earth Pass reward Marquis White Robe will get. The Rain Emperor frowned and transmitted his voice to the Venerable One beside him, asking, did he reveal even the slightest bit of his sovereign's aura when facing the illusory golden armor of the Earth Gate? No. Revered Underworld answered honestly. Is that so? We can't find anything in the 3rd test. Everything depends on the 4th test. Ning Fan took out the Palace Lord token. This time, his merit points had increased by another 10 billion. Suddenly, countless silver dots of light flashed in front of him. Those dots of light condensed into a silver treasure box. The box seemed to contain the reward for clearing the Earth stage. The treasure box had yet to be opened, but a vast wave of magic power rippled out, causing all the old monsters present to hold their breaths. Even the Rain Emperor's eyes were filled with shock, and an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. For a moment, even his imperial aura was thrown to the back of his mind. This is... Countless old monsters began to pant. Ning Fan was also a little surprised. He did not expect that the reward for clearing the Earth stage would be such a good item. This item was very good and he liked it very much. However, he did not know if it would attract the attention of others if he obtained it in front of everyone. Since everyone had already guessed what it was, Ning Fan no longer concealed it. He let out a soft sigh and opened the treasure box. At the moment he opened the treasure box, it immediately emitted traces of cold white mist. What was placed inside the box was a Tao fruit. It was a Tao fruit of a rogue immortal sealed in ice by 7th grade cold chi. This Tao fruit of a rogue immortal contained at least 2 million units of magic power. Even to an old monster at the Rain Sovereign's level, it was extremely tempting. Marquis White Robe, this Tao fruit, are you willing to exchange it with me? A few Void Pierce stage old monsters could no longer hold back their desire and asked Ning Fan for an exchange. I'm willing to exchange a 7th grade immortal void flame for this Tao fruit. Even a prince like Yun Zhongyan had spoken. Even though the Rain Sovereign remained silent, his eyes were also staring at the Tao fruit with great desire. Who would not want to gain 2 million units of magic power for no reason? I'm sorry. This Tao fruit. I won't exchange it with you. Ning Fan kept the treasure box of the Tao fruit. His eyes swept across the Rain God Palace, the princes, the Void Fragmentation Realm experts and the Rain Sovereign with a serious expression. Now that this item had been exposed, it might cause some trouble. Under the temptation of great benefits, it was inevitable that some greedy people would covet this Tao fruit. Ning Fan believed that with the background of the Black Devil sect, the Rain Sovereign and the others with great identities would not turn against him for a Tao fruit. However, it was hard to guarantee that there would not be any desperate people who would covet this Tao fruit. The old monster's eyes were filled with different expressions. They did not know if there were people who were plotting against this Tao fruit. Only a few people who were on good terms with Ning Fan did not have any intention of coveting it even though they were envious of him obtaining the Rogue Immortal's Tao fruit. The Pill Sovereign stroked his beard and walked out with a cold expression. His sharp eyes swept across the main hall. Heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures belong to those who are fated with them. This Tao fruit belongs to Ning Fan. He doesn't want to exchange it with anyone. It's better for all of you not to covet this Tao fruit. Even though cultivation base is precious, it is not as precious as your life. All of you should think twice before you act. The pill sovereign's voice was extremely calm, but it carried a hint of threat. His intention to protect Ning Fan was obvious. When the others saw that Ning Fan was protected by the pill sovereign and they were worried about his identity and background, they could only dispel the greed in their hearts. The Rain Sovereign did not say a word. After the pill sovereign spoke, he said with a smile, "Marquis Whiterobe is the palace lord of a branch of my Rain Palace. Since he is unwilling to exchange for the Dao fruit, no one can threaten him. Whoever dares to harm Marquis Whiterobe will become the enemy of my Rain Palace. I won't let him go." The Rain Sovereign's words also carried a hint of threat. Even though the rogue immortal's Dao fruit was precious, it was far from enough for the Rain Sovereign to become an immortal. Ning Fan was very useful to the Rain Sovereign. His indestructible fire body was the Rain Sovereign's hope to become an immortal. The Rain Sovereign would not fall out with Ning Fan just for a Dao fruit. Ning Fan cupped his fists at the Pill Sovereign and the Rain Sovereign to express his gratitude, thanking them for helping him out of his predicament. He was being polite to the Rain Sovereign, but he was grateful to the Pill Sovereign from the bottom of his heart. It was because the Pill Sovereign was also protecting Ning Fan from the bottom of his heart. I will host the third test. Are you ready? The Pill Sovereign waved his hand, signaling Ning Fan not to thank him, and said with a smile, "I'm ready." Ning Fan answered with a clear voice. The third test is about pill formation and miscellaneous techniques. There are 4 tests of heaven and earth. Those who pass one of the tests will be qualified to become the palace lord of a branch palace. If your Dao comprehension, Dao heart and divine abilities are not up to standard but you are proficient in pill formation techniques, you can also become a palace lord. It has been many years since we parted ways in the endless sea. Today, I will test your pill refinement techniques. You can also treat it as my second time giving you pointers. The Pill Sovereign smiled. His eyes were filled with kindness as if he had made some kind of decision. I shall give Ning Fan a big gift for the third test. It was just like how his master had treated him countless years ago. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.